The last thing I remembered was the cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and never leaves. I was lying in a broken-down cowshed, freezing, starving, covered in wounds old and new, coughing up blood. That was how I died, alone, in the snow, like a ghost instead of a person. Hard to believe I was once the eldest child of the Gu family, the richest family in all of Jiangnan. We had land, shops, wealth built over 100 years. But none of that mattered when the special era came crashing down on us. Our family was too rich, too visible. They labeled us as one of the Black Five, enemies of the people. Everything fell apart after that. My 3 older brothers, strong, talented, none of them even married yet, were dragged through the streets, beaten, tortured, worked to death. Not one of them got a proper burial. My father, the man who held our whole family together, couldn't take the humiliation anymore and took his own life. My mother, who had never suffered a single day of hardship, wasted away from fear and hunger until she was gone too. Over 10 years of that hell, the raids, the public shaming, the beatings, the starvation, it ground away everything inside me. Every shred of pride, every reason to keep going. When I finally died that winter night, my only thought was, if I ever got another chance, I would protect my family no matter what. Then I woke up. I was lying on a soft silk bed in my old room, surrounded by the familiar smell of fine incense. I looked at my hands, smooth, young, healthy. No scars, no calluses, no signs of suffering. This was my body at 16. I stumbled to the window and threw it open. Outside, the Gu family estate spread out before me. The tiled roofs, the gardens, the servants going about their work calmly. Everything peaceful, everything whole. Then I saw the calendar on the wall. 1950. My eyes burned with tears. I had come back to when my family was still at its peak, still safe. The disaster was still 2 years away. There was still time. The joy hit me first, then the terror. Every horrible memory came flooding back. My brothers broken and dying, my father's final look, my mother weeping on her sickbed. I could see it all clear as day, and it cut through me like a knife. Not again. I swore it right there. This time, I would save them. My parents, my brothers, the entire Gu family. I would find a way to dodge that catastrophe before it ever reached us. Just as my mind was racing, I felt a strange warmth between my eyebrows. Suddenly, a vast empty space appeared in my mind, an endless white void, stretching in every direction. No soil, no water, nothing growing, just pure emptiness. But I could sense it clearly, this space could store things. I looked at a small jade clasp on my dressing table and focused my thoughts on it. In an instant, the clasp vanished from the table. I focused again, and it reappeared, right back where it had been, completely undamaged. My heart nearly stopped. I had been reborn with an unlimited storage space. And with 2 years before everything goes wrong, I finally had a real chance to change my family's fate. I calmed myself down and kept testing the space. I tried storing everything I could get my hands on, ornaments from the table, my handkerchief, the pearl hairpin for my hair. Anything I wanted to store, I just had to think it, and it disappeared inside. One thought to put it in, one thought to take it out. What got me even more excited was what happened with food. I put in some pastries and fresh fruit, waited a while, then pulled them back out. Still perfectly fresh, not even slightly spoiled. Even meat and expensive medicine stayed exactly the same, as if time inside that space had completely stopped. Nothing rotted, nothing went bad.
Permanent préservation.
The only downside was that there was no soil or water inside, so I couldn't grow anything or raise animals. It was purely for storage. But that was already more than enough. This was a gift from heaven. In 2 years, when the chaos begins, they'll raid every wealthy family's home. Any visible wealth becomes a death sentence. But with this invisible, untraceable space, I could hide as much gold, silver, grain, medicine, and supplies as I needed. No one could ever find it, no matter how hard they searched. This was my lifeline. This was the Gu family's trump card for survival. I couldn't waste a single moment. I had to tell my parents immediately. In my past life, my parents had been too attached to everything our family had built over generations. They couldn't bear to let go of the estate, the farmland, the shops. They kept hoping things wouldn't get that bad. But when the storm finally hit, it was too sudden. They couldn't sell off the properties without attracting attention or getting cheated on the price. They were trapped, and in the end, they lost everything and everyone. This time, I knew what was coming and I had the space. I would make sure our whole family planned ahead, kept a low profile, and stayed hidden. I took a deep breath, straightened my clothes, and rushed out of my room, through the covered walkways and garden paths, straight to the main hall. The atmosphere inside was calm and peaceful. My father, Gu Hongyuan, sat in his carved wooden chair, wearing a dark silk robe, looking dignified and sharp-eyed, the way a man who controlled the biggest fortune in Jiangnan always looked. He was careful, shrewd, and had always been a firm believer in fate and the will of heaven. My mother, Su Wanru, sat beside him in an elegant qipao, graceful and gentle as always. She came from a scholarly family and ran our entire household with quiet precision. Her whole world revolved around my father and us children. When she heard my footsteps and saw the serious look on my face, she spoke softly. "Wan, what's wrong? You look so flustered. Did something happen?" I didn't answer. I walked straight to the doors, shut them, and bolted them locked, cutting off any chance of someone overhearing. Then I dropped to my knees on the cold stone floor, looked up at my parents' stunned faces, and spoke in a tight, hoarse voice. "Father, Mother, I have something critical to tell you. It concerns the lives of every single person in our family. If you don't believe me, within 2 years, the entire Gu family will be destroyed." Those words landed like a hammer. My father's hand froze midair, his teacup suspended. His brow furrowed deeply, and his expression turned dark. My mother went pale. She rushed over, trying to pull me up. "Silly child, why would you say something so terrible? Our family is doing well. We're blessed and comfortable. What do you mean, destroyed? Get up, please." But I stayed on my knees. I gripped my fingers so tight they turned white, and I told them everything. Every single detail of my past life. How in 1952, the political storm would arrive and our family would be labeled as Black 5 because of our wealth. How our farmland would be seized, our shops shut down, our home raided. How my 3 brothers, innocent, brilliant young men, would be dragged to public trials, forced into hard labor, tortured until they died, one after another. How my father would end his own life because he couldn't bear the humiliation anymore. How my mother would fall gravely ill and die in misery. And finally, how I would be left alone, bullied and broken, drifting through half a lifetime of suffering until I froze and starved to death in the snow, the last of the Gu family line, gone without a trace. Every word I spoke was soaked in blood and tears. The hall went completely silent. My mother was shaking uncontrollably. Her face had gone white as paper. She pressed her hand over her mouth, trying to hold back the sobs, but tears poured down her cheeks and splashed onto her clothes. The thought of her 3 sons, young, full of promise, dying like that. The thought of her husband taking his own life. The thought of herself wasting away from illness. It was too much. Fear swallowed her whole, and her legs nearly gave out beneath her. "No, that can't be. How could this happen?" she whispered, trembling. "We run an honest business. We've never hurt anyone. How could we end up like that?" My father's teacup slipped from his hand and crashed onto the wooden table, shattering into pieces. Hot tea splashed everywhere. My father's face was dark as a storm. Behind his eyes I could see shock, disbelief, and just a flicker of panic he was trying to hide. He had spent half his life as a merchant, reading people, trusting in fate and the ways of heaven. The more wealth a man holds, the more he fears what he cannot control. What I told him sounded insane, but he could see the grief, the despair, the deep hatred in my eyes. He knew a 16-year-old girl couldn't fake that kind of pain. Still, the complete destruction of our family was too horrifying to simply accept. He swallowed hard, his voice rough and dry. "Wan, tell me the truth. Everything you just said, Is it real? You're not imagining things? Not guessing? I understood. Words alone wouldn't be enough. A prophecy, this outrageous, needed proof. I slowly stood up and looked at the center of the table, where our family's treasured inkstone sat, a priceless heirloom passed down for generations, carved from the finest stone. Father, Mother, I know this is hard to accept. I won't try to argue. Just watch. I focused my mind, locked onto the inkstone, and willed it away. In an instant, it vanished. The table was empty. Nothing left behind. My father's eyes went wide. His whole body went rigid and he leaned forward, staring at the bare tabletop, barely breathing. My mother's crying stopped mid-sob. Her tear-filled eyes were huge with shock, her body frozen stiff like she'd been turned to stone. They had just watched a solid object disappear into thin air. I could see the goosebumps crawling up their skin, the chill running down their spines. Before they could even process what happened, I focused again. A faint shimmer of light, and the inkstone reappeared on the table, perfectly intact, every detail unchanged, as if it had never been gone. They saw it with their own eyes. Vanish into nothing, return from nothing. My father had traveled across the country in his lifetime and seen countless strange things, but nothing like this. Nothing even close. In that moment, every last trace of doubt disappeared.
He believed me.
All of it. That I had died and come back. That 2 years from now, a disaster would come to destroy everything we had. Every word was true. Heaven. Heaven has taken pity on our family, he muttered, his back soaked in cold sweat, his heart torn between terror at what almost was and gratitude for this second chance. My mother's legs gave out, and she collapsed back into her chair. She covered her face and sobbed openly, shaking with relief and lingering fear.
That's so terrifying.
Thank goodness, Maman came back. Thank goodness we know now. Otherwise our whole family would have been finished. Grief, fear, and desperate relief crashed over her all at once. She was barely holding herself together. My father forced himself to calm down. He was a man who had weathered many storms, and his sharp mind kicked back into gear quickly. Even while I had been telling them about the future, he had already been calculating in his head. Our family's holdings were enormous. Connected estates, farmland stretching across several counties, dozens of shops and branch offices throughout Jiangnan, mountains of gold, silver, jewelry, antiques, and paintings. Once the political storm hit, every bit of visible wealth would become a chain around our necks. Selling everything off in a rush meant getting cheated on prices and taking massive losses. Not selling meant it would all be confiscated anyway. And if we suddenly started unloading our assets, people would get suspicious, and the trouble might come even sooner. It was an impossible trap. No way out. But now, with my storage space, every problem had a solution. Invisible, untraceable, able to hold anything, preserving everything forever, impossible to search. Even if the world turned upside down and we had to flee, change our names, and start over, we could carry every last treasure and supply with us, as light as air. My father's eyes turned sharp and resolute. He spoke in a firm, steady voice. Wanru, stop crying. Tears won't solve anything. Heaven has given our family a way out, and we're going to grab it with both hands. My father turned to my mother, his voice steady and measured, already laying out a plan. Everything inside the household is your responsibility. We have 36 servants in total. Too many eyes, too many mouths. Every one of them is a risk. You've managed this house for years, and you're sharp. You've been quietly letting the servants skim a little extra for themselves. Everyone knows it, even if nobody says it out loud. Use the excuse that times are getting uncertain, and we're cutting household expenses. Start by quietly letting go of a dozen or so of the outer workers, the laborers, the older maids. It'll look normal, nothing suspicious. The rest, don't rush. Let them go month by month, a few at a time. In the end, keep only the handful of old servants who've been loyal to our family for generations. People who know how to keep their mouths shut. Fewer people means fewer problems. My mother wiped her tears away, pushed down her fear, and nodded firmly. I understand. I'll handle it carefully, step by step, without drawing any attention. No one will notice anything strange. That settled the servant problem. Then my father turned to me, his expression serious and solemn. Wan, come with me. Our ancestors were wise men. When they built this estate, they secretly constructed 7 hidden chambers, scattered underground, behind the garden rockery, in false floors of the upper rooms, in the cellars of the side residences. None of them are connected. All perfectly concealed. Inside those chambers is everything our family has saved over generations: gold, silver, antiques, rare paintings, ancient books, precious medicines, imported Western goods, all kinds of hard-to-get certificates and vouchers. Everything is stored there. Tonight, while no one's watching, you'll come with me and put it all into that space of yours. Yes, I said, and I meant it with every part of me. The night was deep and dark. The estate was perfectly still. The lanterns along the walkways gave off a dim, faint glow. A cool breeze moved through the grounds. Everything was quiet. The night shift servants were huddled in their corners. They caught glimpses of my father walking briskly ahead with a tight expression, me following close behind. Father and daughter, wandering through the estate in the middle of the night instead of sleeping, moving from one spot to another. They all found it strange. What was the master doing dragging the young miss around the grounds at this hour? But none of them dared look too closely or ask questions. They kept their heads down and pretended they saw nothing. We moved carefully, checking that no one was around, then slipped quietly down the stone steps to the entrance of the underground vault. The cellar had been sealed for a long time. It was dark and damp, and cold air hit us the moment we stepped inside. This was the Gu family's most secret treasure room. My father reached for a hidden mechanism in the stone wall and turned it. The heavy stone door groaned and slowly slid open. Inside, rows and rows of dark wooden chests were stacked neatly, filling the entire space. He walked up to the nearest one and lifted the lid. The chest was filled to the brim with gold ingots. The heavy golden glow was almost blinding. He pressed his lips together, furrowed his brow, and turned to me. His voice was barely above a whisper, cautious and testing. Wan, look carefully. There's so much stored in this vault. Can your space really hold all of it? I looked around. 326 chests of gold were lined up across the cellar. Beside them, silver ingots, silver dollars, and gold bars were piled into small mountains, packed tight, stacked high. The sheer volume of wealth was staggering. I let my gaze sweep slowly over all of it, and my heart jolted hard. I had always known our family was wealthy. I grew up as the Gu family's eldest daughter. Of course I knew we were rich. But I never imagined it was this much. Any single one of these chests could feed an ordinary family for a lifetime. I thought about my past life, starving in the frozen wastelands, choking down husks and wild grass, shivering through every day. And now, standing in front of these mountains of treasure, the gap between then and now was almost too much to comprehend. I pushed those feelings down fast, kept my face calm and composed. Don't worry, Father, I said quietly, my voice sure. My space has no limits. It can hold everything, no matter how much. And if we truly have to leave someday, storing it all in the space is the safest way. When he heard that, the tension in his face eased. He let out a long breath and rubbed his hands together. Good, he said 3 times in a row. I could see a huge weight lifting off his shoulders. For a businessman, this wealth was his life's blood. Then his voice dropped low again, heavy with emotion. My daughter, you really are our family's lucky star. I always thought that the mansion, the land, the shops, none of it could be moved. If disaster struck, we'd have to abandon everything. You have no idea how much that thought hurt me.
But now,
thank heavens for your gift. We won't leave behind a single coin. I understand, I said with a nod. I closed my eyes, focused my mind, and reached into that space inside me. One thought. The next second, every chest, every gold ingot, every silver bar, every silver dollar, all of it slowly lifted off the ground, silent as a whisper, and vanished completely. The enormous vault was instantly empty.
Spotless. Clean.
As if nothing had ever been stored there at all. My father's eyes went wide. He stumbled back 2 steps, completely frozen. He had spent decades traveling the country, seeing every kind of spectacle and rare treasure imaginable. But watching that much heavy, solid wealth disappear into thin air right before his eyes, even he couldn't stop the shock that hit him. He stared at the empty cellar, his chest tight, his face full of disbelief. "That's incredible," he whispered, his expression a tangled mix of awe and wonder. "Daughter, you really are a treasure." Then something seemed to cross his mind, and he grabbed my wrist tightly, his tone turning sharp and dead serious. "But listen to me carefully. This secret stays between you, me, and your mother. No one else. You hear me? Not even your 3 brothers. You tell no one. Understand?" I opened my eyes calmly and nodded. "Don't worry, Father. I know better than to tell anyone." Something this unbelievable. Even though we're not living in feudal times anymore, ordinary people still think the old way. If word got out, they'd probably drag me off and burn me as some kind of demon. I smiled a little and patted his hand to ease his nerves. My father snapped out of his daze and let out a breath.
Right.
"Let's move quickly while it's still dark. Get everything from all the vaults into your space. I've been guarding these secrets for decades, and I've never been this rattled in my life. Let's go." 6 more places to hit. We kept moving through the courtyards and corridors, staying quiet and low. The second location was a secret storeroom in the back courtyard's upper floor. It had been locked up for years. No servant was ever allowed near it. My father pushed open a hidden door. Inside, the room was filled with neatly arranged antique porcelain, jade pieces, and scroll paintings. He looked around at his lifetime collection, his face steady. "These are treasures I've gathered over many years. Over 100 rare and one-of-a-kind ancient books, too." I gazed at all those priceless relics and couldn't help myself. "Wow, Father. Our family really is rich." He reached over and flicked my forehead lightly. "You little rascal, teasing your old man now." I grinned, straightened my expression, and focused my mind. In a flash, the entire room was empty. "Next one." My father turned and walked out without stopping. And that's how we went, father and daughter, moving through the enormous goo estate, one secret chamber after another. 3rd, 4th, 5th. All 7 vaults, not a single one missed. In one side building's hidden room, we found an entire mountain of ration tickets and supply coupons piled high. My father picked up a stack, his face serious. "Once the world changes, money won't be worth anything. These tickets are what you actually need to survive." I spent years building connections and pulling strings to get all of these. I paused mid-collection. "Father, look, these are all Southern regional tickets. If we end up in the Northeast, up in the northern wastelands, these won't work at all. I think tomorrow you should take them out and exchange everything for national vouchers that work everywhere. Then I'll store them again, and we'll be able to use them no matter where we go." My father smacked his own forehead. "Yes, yes, yes. You're right, you sharp girl. Look at me. Decades of running a business empire, and your one magic space has got my head spinning so bad I can't think straight. Of course these are all local tickets." He grabbed a handful and held them up to the dim lamplight. "All Jiangnan regional. Completely useless up north." "Fine, I'll take care of it tomorrow." I picked up boxes of items brought back from overseas years ago: wristwatches, pocket watches, binoculars, fine wool fabric, and other foreign goods. "These are small and easy to hide," I said. "Later, when we're settled somewhere new and can't openly spend gold or silver, we can trade these for supplies." Then came the medicine storage behind the rear hill: herbal medicines, Western drugs, wound ointments, and full sets of medical instruments. I swept my hand and pulled everything into the space. The 6th vault was a daily supplies warehouse: bolts of fabric, raw cotton, quilts, fur coats, and all kinds of household goods, packed to the ceiling. Finally, we reached the deepest part of the estate, the 7th and last chamber, the most heavily guarded vault in the entire goo compound. A massive stone door with complex locks. Inside were gemstones, raw stones, ancient coins, and several sealed iron chests containing all the important documents, land deeds, and emergency reserves. But the real prize was at the entrance: 6 full rows of Western cannons, lined up perfectly, with what seemed like an endless supply of shells stacked beside them. Further in, crate after crate of Western rifles and ammunition boxes stretched back, as far as I could see. My heart was pounding with excitement. If I had had these in my last life, my family and I would never have suffered like we did. My father's expression was grave. He kept his voice very low. This is our absolute last resort. Store these separately from everything else. Unless there is truly no other option, we never touch them. I understand. I stored everything in its own isolated section within the space. The only thing I pulled back out were the land deeds. Tomorrow my father would sell those along with the regional tickets. All 7 secret vaults, completely emptied. The night was deep and black. The entire estate lay silent around us. The night hung heavy and black over our estate. Not a sound anywhere except the wind drifting through the covered walkways. My father walked me back to my room himself, checking in every direction to make sure no servants were watching. He waited until I closed the door and bolted it before he finally turned and left. I knew he wouldn't sleep. Not after everything he'd seen and heard tonight. The storm inside his head was too much. He headed straight for his study in the front courtyard. Outside the study door, he ordered the servant boy on night watch in a low, hard voice. No one comes near this room tonight. No one disturbs me. Anyone who disobeys will be punished severely. The boy bowed so fast he nearly tripped over himself. Yes, master. Understood. Once everyone had cleared out, my father shut the study doors, locked them tight, and sealed himself off from the world. He sat down at his desk and pressed a hidden copper bell underneath. Before long, his most trusted steward came in quietly, standing with his hands at his sides. My father looked up at him, face like stone.
Go.
Bring me every stored ration ticket we have, grain, oil, meat, coal, fabric. And the special goods tickets too, washing machines, bicycles, anything scarce. Also bring every property deed, house contract, land title, and shop document we own. All of it. Bring it here to the study. The steward felt the weight of that command. He didn't dare ask questions. He bowed and hurried out. Before long, thick leather document folders, yellowed scrolls, and neatly bound ticket booklets were carried in load after load, stacked across the long table until it was completely covered. Ration tickets of every kind formed a small mountain. Property deeds for farmland outside the city, shop fronts on the main streets, a waterside villa, dockfront trading offices, layer upon layer, each one representing a piece of our family's empire. My father leaned over the table, his fingertips slowly tracing across the pages, counting and calculating in silence. When he finished his rough tally, the number came to over 130 separate properties. The title of Jiangnan's wealthiest family was never just empty talk. All these years, my father had kept a low profile. He never flaunted our wealth in public, always playing the part of a modest country gentleman. But behind the scenes, his business instincts were razor-sharp and his moves were decisive. He had quietly expanded our holdings in every direction, building up a fortune far beyond what anyone on the outside could have guessed. A cold breeze slipped through the window cracks, rustling the edges of the papers on the desk. My father sat alone in his chair, the air around him heavy and still. He picked up his white porcelain teacup. The tea inside had gone completely cold. It tasted bitter going down, but even that couldn't settle what was churning inside him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw last night's scene in the cellar. Mountains of gold and silver, vanishing into thin air at a single thought from his daughter. It defied everything he understood about how the world worked. This terrifying secret hidden within me, it was so enormous that his heart still hadn't stopped racing. Even now, he couldn't fully wrap his mind around it. He rubbed his aching temples, replaying everything I had told him about what happened to our family in my previous life. A dynasty of wealth and prestige, ending in complete ruin. That couldn't have been just because of political upheaval. Our family was too big, too prominent. We were a tall tree that caught every wind. There had to have been enemies lurking in the shadows, scheming people who bore grudges, opportunists looking to tear us down. Layer upon layer of attacks, until we collapsed entirely. But now he knew what was coming, and he had my power as his trump card. He would not make the same mistakes. My father tapped his fingers on the desk, his eyes dark and calculating, carefully mapping out our escape plan. First, get all the hidden wealth safely stored in my space so we could carry it anywhere. Then, quietly sell off the properties bit by bit, trading them for essential supplies without attracting attention. Finally, pick the right moment and move our entire family out of Jiangnan before it was too late. His first thought was to go overseas. My mother's father and his clan had been established in Southeast Asia for years. Deep connections, solid footing. If we fled to them, we'd have family to lean on. It seemed like the safest route. But then he remembered what I had specifically warned him about, and he slowly shook his head.
No.
We absolutely cannot leave the country. He had brought up the idea to me earlier. If things got desperate, we could sail south and join my grandfather's people overseas, away from the chaos at home. But I had shut that down immediately, and I had explained exactly why. The authorities were already tightening control in secret. Sea routes were being locked down harder with each passing month. In the lead-up to the upheaval, every port and customs checkpoint would be watched more closely than ever. In recent years, plenty of wealthy families had tried to flee by sea. Some were robbed by pirates along the way and lost everything, their money and their lives. Even those who made it overseas ended up dependent on others. A family like ours that had never left the country, we didn't speak foreign languages, didn't know local customs, had no skills for surviving abroad. Life would be miserable. Even with my grandfather's family in Southeast Asia, distant relatives can only help so much. The locals were hostile to outsiders, and immigrant families were never truly accepted. Eventually, we'd burn through our savings and end up in an even worse position. On top of all that, in my past life, the enemies watching our family had spies everywhere. The moment they caught wind that we were trying to flee by sea, they would set up ambushes along every route. We'd be walking straight into a trap. When my father weighed it all carefully, the overseas plan looked appealing on the surface, but was a death sentence underneath. That road was completely closed to us. My father let out a long breath and turned his gaze northward. His mind was made up. Since we couldn't leave the country, we'd stay inland. Since the south was too dangerous, we'd go north. The great northern wasteland, far from Jiangnan and all its tangled rivalries, grudges, and politics. We'd find some remote, quiet place, change our names, forge new identities, wipe our past clean, and settle down in hiding until the chaos passed. The plan took shape piece by piece, and for the first time in days, the tension in his chest loosened just a little. Before he knew it, dawn was breaking. Pale light crept through the window paper into the study, pushing away the darkness. He had been up the entire night. His eyes were threaded with red veins, his face worn with exhaustion, but his gaze was sharper and more determined than ever. He stood up, straightened his clothes, opened the study door, and told a servant to summon all three of my brothers immediately. They arrived quickly, dressed neatly, still a little foggy from being woken so early. The moment they stepped inside and felt the heavy, serious mood in the room, they straightened up and stood quietly with their hands at their sides. My eldest brother spoke first, his tone respectful. "Father, it's barely dawn, and you haven't slept all night. What's happened that you need us so urgently?" My father looked at his three sons, all well-raised, honest, loyal, steady. And then he thought about what I had told him, about how each of them had died in my previous life. His heart ached. He softened his voice slightly, though his expression stayed grave. "I called you here because this concerns the safety of every single person in our family." He was careful to say nothing about my rebirth, the dreams, or the storage space. He kept those secrets locked away and built his case on outside information instead. "I've been making inquiries recently, gathering intelligence from private sources." He began, his voice low and steady. "Before long, the entire country is going to change. Upheaval is coming everywhere. The wealthier and more prominent a family is, the bigger the target on their back." My second brother frowned. "Father? Everything seems stable right now. How could something like that happen so suddenly?" "Undercurrents never show on the surface," my father said firmly. "Our family has been rooted in Jiangnan for generations. We have properties everywhere. A tree that tall catches every storm. Countless people already have their eyes on us. When the trouble starts, we'll be the first ones hit. That's why I've decided we act now. Pull back, stay low, draw no attention. My third brother, always the straightforward one, stood up tall. Father, just tell us what to do. All three of us will follow your lead. My father nodded, and I could tell that seeing his sons so reliable brought him real comfort. I'm going to start quietly selling off our farmland, shops, villas, and trading offices, bit by bit, in secret. Each of you will take a share of the property documents and handle your portion separately. Find the most trustworthy, tight-lipped middlemen you can. Sell everything quietly. No one outside this family can know what we're doing. Understood? My eldest brother said solemnly. We'll be careful and keep everything low-key. We should handle each property independently so nothing connects back to us, my second brother added thoughtfully. Don't worry, father. We know what's at stake. The four of them wrapped up their discussion quickly, no wasted words. My three brothers each took a heavy stack of land deeds, house contracts, and business documents, tucked them away securely, and slipped out of the estate one by one to begin their work, quietly laying the groundwork for our family's escape. While all of this was happening in the front courtyard, I knew nothing about it. I had been up most of the night storing everything from the secret vaults, my mind stretched tight for hours. Now that it was done, I slept deeper and more peacefully than I had in a long time. No dreams, no worries, and didn't wake up until the sun was high overhead. For once, I let myself enjoy the quiet. But the inner household wasn't resting either. My mother had stayed up worrying alongside my father, caught only the briefest nap, and was already up and dressed by first light. She couldn't afford to waste a single moment. It was time to clean house. With the situation this dangerous and 36 servants on the grounds, a mix of loyal and untrustworthy. Too many people meant too many risks. If we wanted to survive, we had to cut the numbers down and root out every problem. My mother sat in her place in the main hall, calm and composed, carrying the full authority of the lady of the house. She turned to the head housekeeper and spoke in a tone that was quiet but left no room for argument. Send the order. Today we audit everything, kitchen expenses, each courtyard's allowances, warehouse inventory. Every account gets checked line by line. Any discrepancies, any signs of cheating, report it all to me exactly as you find it. The housekeeper bowed immediately. Yes, madam. Once the books were opened and the records compared, kitchen supplies in versus supplies used, warehouse stock against what was actually on the shelves, every dirty little secret hidden in the back corners of our estate came spilling out. The head cook and 2 kitchen helpers had been skimming for a long time. Every day they held back a portion of the fine rice, flour, cooking oil, cured meat, eggs, and fresh vegetables. They swapped the good grain for cheap, low-quality stuff, hid the extras in concealed cabinets behind the kitchen walls, and sold them to street vendors whenever they went out shopping, pocketing the money for themselves. The 2 gatekeepers were lazy and useless. Instead of doing their jobs, they spent all day chatting with street loafers and local troublemakers. Every piece of household business, my father's late-night meetings, who came and went, staffing changes, they blabbed it all to outsiders without a second thought. Then there were the cleaning women and errand runners scattered across the courtyards. They formed little cliques, slacked off together, and did the bare minimum of their duties. In their free time, they huddled in hallway corners gossiping about the family, spreading rumors, speculating about our private affairs. The greedier ones helped themselves to scraps of fabric, sewing supplies, and small household items whenever they passed the storerooms, stealing bit by bit until it became habit. The account books were laid out on the table. Entry after entry didn't add up. Witnesses, evidence, everything laid bare. The guilty servants had no way to deny any of it. Before long, 12 servants were brought into the main hall one by one. They stumbled in, legs shaking, faces white as paper. The moment they crossed the threshold, every single one of them dropped to their knees, foreheads pressed against the cold stone floor, trembling like leaves in the wind. Please have mercy, madam. I know what I did was wrong. I'll never do it again. Please give us one more chance. We'll work hard from now on, we swear. The crying and begging echoed through the hall, one voice tumbling over another, all panic and desperation. The head housekeeper stepped forward, her face cold as ice, and laid out every offense in front of everyone, clear and precise. 3 kitchen staff, long-term theft of grain, oil, vegetables, and meat from household supplies. Hoarding and selling stolen goods for personal profit. Systematic corruption. 2 gatekeepers, neglecting their duties, loose-lipped, leaking family business to outsiders. A serious security risk with dangerous consequences. The remaining maids and laborers, forming cliques, shirking work, gossiping about the masters behind their backs, stirring up trouble, and stealing household items. Every one of these offenses violates COWSHED family rules. The hall was dead silent under the weight of it all. My mother sat in the main chair, her fingertips lightly tracing the rim of her teacup. Her expression was calm, not a flicker of anger on her face, but the authority radiating from her was unmistakable. She slowly raised her eyes and let her gaze sweep across the people kneeling before her. Every one of them shrank under that look, not daring to meet her eyes. "The COWSHED family took you in and gave you a place to live," she said, her voice even and unhurried, but every word carried weight. "You received your wages on time every month. Extra silver for holidays. Cotton clothes and shoes in winter, cool shirts and fans in summer. 3 full meals a day, every day." No one was ever mistreated. Her tone dropped a shade darker. I believed that treating people with sincerity would earn their loyalty. But some hearts are never satisfied. Instead of appreciating a good, stable life, you let greed take over. Cutting corners, helping yourselves, forgetting your place. One of the older kitchen helpers lifted her tear-streaked face, looking completely wretched, and scrambled to defend herself. "Madam, we just lost our heads for a moment. The ingredients seemed like more than enough, so we took a tiny bit just that once. We never dared take much. Please have mercy, just this one time." A tiny moment of weakness becomes a lifetime of bad habits, my mother said, her eyes turning sharp. "Today you steal grain and oil. Tomorrow you'll steal jewelry. Today you gossip about your masters. Tomorrow you'll conspire with outsiders and sell this family out." She took a deep breath and glanced toward the brightening sky outside the window. The world outside is growing more dangerous by the day. Trouble is coming. The COWSHED family needs to tighten its doors, keep a low profile, and move carefully if we want to survive. I will not allow people with dishonest hands, loose tongues, and crooked intentions to remain under this roof, creating risks that could drag our entire family down. My mother had always been gentle and kind. She treated the servants with warmth and rarely punished anyone. But when the safety of our whole family was at stake, she didn't hesitate. What needed cutting got cut. What needed punishing got punished. No softness, no second-guessing. "This household currently employs 36 servants," she said, raising her hand to deliver the final judgment. "Today's investigation has confirmed 12 of them guilty of misconduct. Carry out the standard COWSHED family procedure. Settle every person's outstanding wages in full, down to the last coin. Then escort them off the premises immediately. They are permanently dismissed. None of them are ever to set foot in this household again." The moment those words landed, the 12 kneeling servants turned gray as ash. Their desperate wailing shot up louder than ever. They slammed their foreheads against the stone floor over and over, begging, leaving red marks on their skin, but none of it changed a thing. Along the corridors on both sides, the remaining 24 servants who hadn't done anything wrong stood perfectly still, holding their breath, not daring to make a sound. They had just watched their coworkers, people they'd work beside every day, get thrown out on the spot for stealing, slacking, and talking too much. Fear and shock were written all over their faces. The midday sun came through the carved windows and fell across the courtyard. The weather was warm and bright, but the whole estate felt heavy and subdued, like something had shifted, and everyone could feel it. My mother's purge that morning had been like a boulder dropped into still water. The ripples were still spreading. The 12 dismissed servants had packed their things in tears, clutched their final wages, and been escorted out through the front gate, looking utterly defeated. The 24 who remained kept their heads down, walked softly, worked without slacking, spoke in hushed voices, and didn't dare gather in groups to chat. Every single one of them was walking on eggshells. My mother stood under the eaves of the main hall, watching the last of the dismissed servants disappear through the gate, her fingers tightening slightly at her sides. She had always been gentle. Her whole life she'd been kind-hearted, and she almost never dealt with servants this harshly. But last night my father had stayed up without a moment of sleep, his face grave, and had quietly told her that the world was about to turn upside down, that our family needed to prepare an escape route. She understood perfectly. Chaos was coming. People's loyalties would waver. With so many eyes and ears inside our walls, even the smallest slip could become the spark that burned our entire family to the ground. Showing mercy only breeds betrayal. Being soft only leaves danger behind. To protect every life under the Gu family roof, she had to harden her heart, clean out the household, and stamp out every threat before it could grow. The head housekeeper approached her side and spoke cautiously. "Madam, losing 12 people at once leaves us very short-handed. The kitchen, the cleaning, the errands, it'll be hard to manage. Should we hire a new batch of reliable workers?" My mother slowly shook her head, her eyes cool and clear. "No." Her voice was calm but firm. "The world outside is getting more unstable by the day. You can't trust people you don't know. We are not bringing strangers into this household." We trimmed down. Fewer people means less noise, less gossip, less trouble. The housekeeper nodded, understanding. "You're right, madam. That's the wiser course." My mother's gaze darkened a shade as she continued. "Go tell everyone their duties are being reassigned. From now on, each person does their own job and stays in their lane. Don't ask questions that aren't yours to ask. Don't repeat things that aren't yours to share. Don't listen to rumors from outside. Don't carry family business beyond these walls. If anyone is caught gossiping, slacking, or stealing again, the Gu family will not show mercy a second time. Understood, madam?" "I'll make sure every person hears it clearly." The housekeeper bowed and withdrew. From that moment on, the inner household went completely quiet. Meanwhile, I had slept straight through the morning. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and sat up slowly. Warm sunlight streamed through the window, and my room was peaceful and still. After spending most of the night emptying all 7 secret vaults, gold, silver, antiques, tickets, supplies, everything stored safely in my space, the tension I'd been carrying had finally melted away. I'd slept deeply and comfortably for the first time in what felt like forever. My father was already moving behind the scenes, laying out his plans. My mother was tightening control of the household. My brothers were each handling their share of the work. The whole family was preparing to survive what was coming. I didn't need to rush. I just needed to stay steady and do my part as things unfolded. My personal maid came in with washing supplies, moving carefully, speaking in a near whisper. I noticed how stiff and nervous she seemed and asked casually, "Why is the estate so quiet today? Everyone seems unusually on edge." She hesitated, then answered in a small voice. "Miss, this morning the madam ordered a full audit of the household accounts and storerooms. They found quite a few servants had been stealing, slacking off, and spreading gossip. She dismissed 12 of them on the spot. Now the whole estate is under strict discipline. Nobody dares speak or move out of turn." I paused for a moment, then understood. My mother had already made her move. I nodded calmly and didn't press for details. "Good to know. Just focus on doing your own job well." The maid kept her head down and didn't say another word. I ate a simple breakfast, a bowl of seafood porridge, and while I ate, my mind was already working on what to do next. This life, I had everything. Plenty of food, comfortable living, and an impossible storage space that could keep anything fresh forever. The very first thing I wanted to take care of was my stomach. In my last life up in the northern wastelands, I had starved for years. Coarse grain, bitter wild greens, barely a taste of meat from one end of the year to the other. My belly was never full. That gnawing, desperate hunger, that bone-deep cold, I would carry those memories forever. Now, with the space keeping everything at perfect temperature indefinitely, every piece of food staying as fresh as the moment I stored it, I was never going to let myself go hungry again. More importantly, I needed to stockpile as much food as possible for when we fled north and started our new life in hiding. I finished the porridge quickly and called my maid over, keeping my voice low. Go into the city. Visit the best Jiangnan pastry shops, and that new Western bakery too. Buy as many fine pastries, cream cakes, flaky biscuits, and honey cakes as you can. If anyone asks, tell them I'm recovering from my illness and want treats for tea. If they press further, say the extras are gifts for relatives. Get plenty. The more the better. She nodded and hurried out without delay. Then I called the kitchen staff and gave them careful instructions. Start pickling a large batch of salted duck eggs today. Use fresh farm eggs and make sure they're properly brined all the way through. I didn't explain my reasons out loud, but I knew exactly what I was doing. Salted eggs last a long time, they're nutritious and filling, and when we eventually headed north, they'd be easy to eat without attracting attention. Plain, simple food that nobody would think twice about. On top of that, I ordered the kitchen to start mass-producing dry goods. Thick, sturdy flatbreads made from white flour. Corn buns, soft and heavy enough to keep you full for hours. White steamed buns, firm and dense. Big meat-stuffed baozi, packed with real filling and plenty of oil. Anything we could buy in bulk from the pastry shops in town, I ordered. Anything the kitchen could make in-house. I had them working day and night. Staple foods, dry rations, meat dishes, vegetable dishes. I wanted it all, and as much as possible. The maids and kitchen workers looked surprised. They had no idea what I was planning. But after what had happened that morning with the mass dismissals, every servant in the house was still shaking in their shoes. Nobody dared ask questions. They just nodded and got to work. Once the kitchen was sorted, I went to the main courtyard to find my mother. When she had a free moment, I approached her, my tone gentle but my thoughts well organized. Mother, there's something I'd like to discuss with you. She turned and looked at me warmly. You've just recovered from your illness. You should be resting in your room. But go ahead, tell me what's on your mind. Mother, everyone in the household knows I've been sick and just got better, I said, laying it out carefully. I'd like to use my recovery as an excuse to host a 3-day banquet, a celebration feast for relatives, neighbors, and old family friends. A way to mark my return to health and bring some good fortune. My mother blinked, a little taken aback. A 3-day banquet? Won't that be too extravagant? It might draw too much attention. It looks extravagant, but it's actually the perfect cover, I said, keeping my voice low. If we suddenly start buying huge amounts of grain, meat, dried goods, and supplies out of nowhere, all coming in and nothing going out, people are going to get suspicious sooner or later. They'll start watching us. But if we're hosting a celebration feast, we have every reason in the world to order food and supplies in massive quantities. It's completely normal. Nobody can question it. I paused, then continued. The wealthy guests and old family friends who come won't actually eat that much. These banquets are mostly for show. People pick at a few dishes and move on. Most of the food just sits there looking pretty, so all those ingredients we order, the pastries, the meat, the rice, the flour, they'll look like they're for the feast, but most of it will quietly go straight into my space. 3 days of celebration gives us a perfectly legitimate reason to buy enormous quantities of everything we need. It's the best chance we'll get to stockpile without anyone noticing. My mother's eyes widened as she grasped what I was really saying. She looked at me, her daughter who appeared delicate and soft-spoken but whose mind ran deeper and further ahead than she had ever realized. I could see the surprise in her expression. No wonder my father kept consulting with me privately on everything. I might look quiet and obedient, but my thinking was far beyond what anyone would expect from a young woman of my age. Using a simple recovery banquet as camouflage, buying supplies openly and in massive amounts, hiding our preparations in plain sight, all while building up reserves for our family's escape. One move that accomplished 2 goals at once. My mother thought it over briefly, then nodded with certainty. You've thought this through far more carefully than I did. Leave it to me. I'll send out invitations under my own name, relatives, friends, the prominent families we know, their wives. I'll personally oversee every purchase and every ingredient that comes through the kitchen for all 3 days. Thank you, Mother. I gave her a small smile. With her fully on board, this recovery celebration banquet would become the perfect smokescreen, our best excuse to stockpile everything our family would need for the hard road ahead. Dawn was barely breaking, a thin mist settling over our estate. The household was hushed. After the servant purge, no one dared chat or joke around anymore. My 3 brothers were each suited for different tasks, which made dividing the work easy. My eldest brother, Gu Yan, was steady and experienced. He had spent years helping my father manage the family city businesses and knew how to handle people and deals with care. My second brother, Gu Zhou, was quiet and meticulous. He was best at discreet transactions and working behind the scenes. My third brother, Gu Yang, was easygoing and bold. He knew people on every side of the street, respectable and otherwise. His favorite saying was, "Everyone's a friend." He understood how things worked in the countryside and got things done fast and clean. The 3 of them met in the study after receiving my father's instructions, tucked the property deeds securely into their clothes, and walked out to the corridor. The morning air was cool. Nobody spoke. They all understood that this was about protecting the entire family. The carefree days were over. My eldest brother kept his voice low and got straight to the point. We split up and followed the story father prepared. For anyone who asks, our family expanded too fast in recent years, took losses on several joint ventures, and racked up debts. We only accept hard currency, silver coins, silver dollars, small gold bars. No paper banknotes. Sell at fair market price. No need to go cheap. Our properties are in prime locations with solid reputations. Buyers will line up. My second brother nodded calmly. I'll take care of the smaller courtyard houses and the scattered little shops. Father knows a reliable middleman. I'll work through him. I'll also rewrite all the contracts to erase any connection to the Gu family name. Clean paperwork, no loose ends. My third brother actually dropped his usual lazy, carefree attitude for once, though he still had that rich young man's air about him. He was flicking open and shut some gadget he'd recently bought from a foreigner. A lighter. They called it click, click, click. But his voice was sharp and businesslike. I'll handle the farmland outside the city and the country villas. The big plots are harder to move in one piece, so I'll break them into smaller parcels and sell to local farmers by the acre. 7 days at the fastest, 10 days at most. Done. The 3 of them were in complete agreement. My eldest brother changed into a plain, simple robe. No trace of wealthy arrogance about him. He looked exactly like what he was pretending to be, a capable manager who'd spent years running business affairs for the family. He brought along only one companion, an old steward who had served our family for decades and knew how to keep his head down and his mouth shut. Our family had been established in the city for years and held some of the most valuable commercial properties around. Prime storefronts on the main streets, key warehouses along the river, a well-known silk shop, a busy tea house on a major road. Every single one was in a golden location with steady customers and reliable income. There was no need to sell at a discount. At normal market prices, people would be fighting to buy. The streets were lively that morning. Shops lined up one after another, people coming and going, the smell of cooking fires in the air. My eldest brother walked through it all calmly. When he passed our family shop still open for business as usual, he only glanced at them briefly. In his mind, he had already decided the order, which ones to sell first, which ones to hold a little longer. Everything mapped out. His first stop was the biggest fabric trading house on the west side of the city. The man he was there to see was an old business partner of our family for decades, shopkeeper Chen. The doorman recognized him immediately and ushered him in with great courtesy, through the courtyard, into the receiving hall, tea served at once. Once they were settled, shopkeeper Chen spoke first with a warm smile. "Young Master Gu, what brings you here in person? It's been a while. How is everything at the Gu residence?" My eldest brother gave a polite bow, his manners perfect, his tone open and direct. "You're too kind, Uncle Chen. I've come today on a practical matter, and I'd rather be straightforward with you. A few years back, my father got ambitious and wanted to grow the family business. He partnered with various people and invested in several unfamiliar industries. But the market has gone cold these past 2 years. Business everywhere is struggling. The losses have piled up, and honestly, our cash flow has gotten tight." Shopkeeper Chen stroked his beard and nodded. "There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Business goes up and down. That's just how it works. Every family hits a rough patch with cash flow now and then. Perfectly normal. My eldest brother spoke calmly. My father and I talked it over for a long time. Rather than stretching ourselves too thin and trying to hold on to everything, it makes more sense to scale back. We have plenty of branch shops, idle storefronts, and riverside warehouses around the city, some sitting empty for years, others understaffed and poorly managed. Good locations going to waste. We've decided to sell off the ones we don't need, get some cash back, and cover our losses. Going forward, we'll just keep a few core shops and live simply. Shopkeeper Chen's eyes lit up immediately. No wonder the Goof family has been keeping such a low profile lately. Honestly, everyone in this city has had their eye on your properties. Great locations, well-maintained buildings, solid reputations. Whoever takes over can start making money from day one. So what kind of price are we talking? My brother kept his tone warm and steady. Don't worry, Uncle Chen. I'm not going to jack up the price just because we need money, and I'm not going to sell cheap out of desperation either. Everything goes at normal market value. The books are transparent, the deeds are clean, no disputes attached. All I ask is a smooth deal, money paid, papers signed, and our years of friendship stays intact. Now that's what I like to hear. Shopkeeper Chen slapped the table, grinning wide. I've always appreciated your straightforwardness. To be honest, I've been wanting to expand for a while now. That big riverside warehouse of yours, and those 2 storefronts near the intersection, I've had my eye on them for ages. Perfect location, perfect layout. My brother smiled faintly. If they suit your needs, Uncle Chen, then they're going to a good home. Then it's settled. The shopkeeper agreed on the spot. Tomorrow morning, I'll bring my accountant, my manager, and a builder. We'll inspect the properties, check the books, verify the deeds. If everything looks good, we sign the contract right there, and I pay in full. That works perfectly, my brother replied, composed as ever. They chatted a bit more about market conditions, the mood easy and comfortable. Then my brother excused himself. After leaving the fabric house, he didn't go home. He and the old steward wound through the streets, making visit after visit. The tea merchant Zhou, on the south side of the city. Manager Liu at the dock trading company. The old grain shop owner. All of them were people who had done business with our family for generations. At each stop, the routine was the same: sit down, drink tea, speak plainly. Merchant Zhou sipped his tea and asked slowly, "Young Master Gu, you've been making rounds to all the old business families these past days. I take it there's something on your mind?" My brother didn't waste time with roundabout talk. "I'll be straight with you, Uncle Zhou. Our family overexpanded a few years back. The joint ventures lost a lot of money. We need to bring cash back in, so we're selling off the extra properties, scaling down, and settling into a quieter way of doing business." Zhou understood instantly. "Makes sense. Spread yourself too wide, and one downer can pull the whole thing under. Those tea shops of yours on the main street, and the small courtyards in the alleyways, I've been thinking about picking those up to grow my own business. As long as the price is fair, I'll take them all." Manager Liu at the docks was even more direct. "Your riverside warehouses have the best water and land access in the area, exactly what a trading business needs. Market price, and I'll lock it in today." My brother answered each of them the same way. "You have my word. Everything at market value. Clean books, complete deeds, no liens, no complications. All I want is a smooth transaction with the money settled in full." The next day, the buyers came with their people just as promised. They measured the shops, checked the old accounts, and inspected every deed and title document, going over each detail carefully. Merchant Zhou flipped through the ledgers and nodded approvingly. The Goof family has always done things properly. Clean records, well-kept properties. Hard to find that these days. My brother answered lightly. "If we're handing over a property, it should be in good shape. We wouldn't want to shortchange the buyer." Once every document had been verified, everyone gathered in one of our side halls. Contracts were drawn up in black and white, signed and stamped, 2 copies each. Shopkeeper Chen tucked his copy away carefully and smiled. "These shops are mine to manage now. But we're still in the same trade. Let's keep looking out for each other." "Of course," my eldest brother replied smoothly. The next morning at dawn, the streets were already coming alive. The The shopkeepers who had bought our properties all came prepared with full payment. Everyone paid differently. Some brought stacks of the new paper currency. The wealthier ones had their men carry in small gold bars, little yellow fish, as people called them. The old-school merchants preferred to settle in silver ingots and silver dollars. Teams of strong servants came in pairs, hauling heavy wooden chests through the quiet back alleys and in through our rear gate. The chests thudded dully as they hit the ground, some packed with bundled cash, some loaded with silver, others neatly lined with gold bars. Our old steward and the household accountant set up in the back courtyard and went through every chest one by one. Paper currency, silver ingots, silver dollars, gold bars, each category counted and recorded separately. Every coin accounted for, not a single discrepancy. Once the counting was done, they had everything locked away in the private cellar deep in the back courtyard. After that, my father quietly sent out his most trustworthy steward to exchange and consolidate everything in batches, keeping it discreet. All the silver ingots and silver dollars went to the silver exchange and came back as standardized small gold bars. Then a portion of those gold bars was converted into regular paper currency for our day-to-day household expenses. After several rounds of sorting, all the messy assortment of currencies was neatly organized. In the end, the cellar held only two things: rows of gold bars stacked in perfect order, and bundles of crisp new banknotes. Once everything was settled, my father cleared out all the servants, posted guards around the courtyard perimeter, and made sure no one could get close. When the area was completely quiet, he came to find me privately and had me go down to the cellar to store it all away. And it wasn't just the money from selling the properties. My mother also brought out every bit of her personal savings and private assets and handed them over for me to put in the space. These days, I had basically become the family's all-purpose tool. Whatever needed doing, wherever something needed moving, send goo on. All this activity didn't go unnoticed. The neighbors and local business people saw what was happening and naturally started talking among themselves. I heard the Goo family took some big losses, so they're selling off extra properties to cover the gap. That's just business. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Smart to pull back and stabilize. A family with that kind of foundation isn't going under just because they trimmed some holdings. Exactly. Even a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. The story held up perfectly. Nobody suspected a thing. My eldest brother's side of things went smoothly. Every deal handled cleanly and efficiently. My second brother, Gu Zhou, was a completely different type. He was naturally quiet and reserved, never liked crowds, and hated noisy, busy places. He seemed slow and distant on the surface, but his mind was razor-sharp underneath. He always had his own calculations running, his own way of doing things. The properties assigned to him were all the small, scattered ones spread throughout the old parts of the city, tucked away courtyard houses in deep alleyways, quiet standalone homes on the outskirts, little pawn shops in out-of-the-way spots, small general stores along side streets. Altogether, over 40 properties. They might have looked like minor holdings, but every one of them was solid. Our family had always been picky about real estate, good locations, well-built layouts, carefully maintained. Some were peaceful retreats perfect for living in, others were street-facing and ideal for shops. On the open market, they would sell themselves. No shortage of interested buyers. My second brother didn't want to waste time chatting with neighbors or making small talk. He went alone, walking quietly into the depths of the old city. The deeper he went into the narrow lanes, the quieter everything became. Worn brick walls lined the tight, winding alleys. Few people around. Wind rustled through the plants growing over the walls. The whole atmosphere was hushed and subdued, the perfect kind of place for private conversations about important matters. He had it all figured out in his head. Over 40 properties to unload, a large number, but each one small and scattered across different locations. After thinking it through, there was really only one person he could trust with this, an old scholar who had been my father's go-to middleman for years. This man made his living handling private property transfers and real estate deals among common folk. He had connections everywhere, broad experience, and knew how to keep his mouth shut. Our family had bought many of our smaller courtyard houses through him over the years. They had worked together for so long that both sides knew exactly what to expect. Completely trustworthy. My second brother knew the way by heart. He walked to the end of the alley and knocked on the door of a plain, unremarkable little courtyard. The door opened slowly, and there stood the old scholar. Goujo sat down at the table, his expression calm as always. He pulled out a thick stack of neatly organized house deeds and land contracts and pushed them across the table. He looked at the old man steadily. "I need you to sell all of these." The scholar glanced down at the pile, his eyebrows rising as he slowly flipped through the documents. "This many? Over 40 properties, courtyards, shops. Is the Goof family doing a major overhaul?" My brother ran his fingers lightly along his sleeve cuff, his voice flat and unhurried. "The family is streamlining, pulling things in, settling down. Most of these places have been sitting empty or are too short-staffed to manage properly. Keeping them is just wasteful, so we're letting them all go at once." The old scholar nodded and kept sorting through the papers, but then his tone shifted. He glanced around, leaned in closer, and dropped his voice very low. "Speaking of which, things in the city haven't been exactly peaceful lately. You should be careful out there." My brother looked up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "What do you mean?" The scholar let out a sigh, his face creasing with worry. "The authorities have been quietly tightening their grip. Investigations everywhere, and the pressure is building fast. Just a few days ago, an old gentry family out on the edge of the city got targeted out of nowhere." My brother went still. The relaxed look on his face hardened instantly.
Why?
"What did they do? Who knows?" The old man shook his head helplessly. "Nobody said they stole anything. Nobody said they broke any law. They just dug up some excuse about the family's ancestors having improper conduct, dragged up ancient history, and used it as a reason to launch a full investigation. The whole household was turned upside down. Ancestors' conduct." My brother repeated the words quietly, his brow furrowing deep. His face went slightly pale. "What kind of reason was that? Punishing a family for something their grandparents supposedly did?" He kept his composure on the surface and pressed further. "Is there any clear information about what actually happened?" The scholar shook his head again. "Just rumors and whispers. Nobody dares ask too many questions, and nobody dares dig deeper." Those words landed on my brother like a stone on his chest. Suddenly, everything my father had said a few days ago made complete sense. This was exactly the kind of thing we were racing to get ahead of. His casual manner vanished completely. He sat up straight, leaned forward, and looked at the old scholar with dead seriousness. "Listen, I want to change the terms on this deal." The scholar blinked. "What terms?" "Tell me, if I can do it, I will. No silver ingots. No silver dollars. No gold bars, no little yellow fish. None of it. For every single transaction, I want payment in the new paper currency only. Nothing else." The scholar's eyes sharpened. He understood the implications immediately and nodded. "I get it. Paper money is the only thing that's going to be safe to hold going forward. Gold and silver are going to be restricted sooner or later. And one more thing." My brother pressed his lips together, his voice growing more urgent. "I need you to speed this up. 7 days. All 40-plus properties must be sold, transferred, and paid for within 7 days. The scholar stroked his beard, looking perfectly confident. "Don't worry about that at all. It's not even difficult. There are more and more people moving into the city these days. Everyone needs a place to live. Everyone needs a shop to run a business. Your properties have good layouts, great locations, and they're in excellent condition. They'll sell themselves. 7 days? Once I put the word out, they could all be gone in less than that." My brother let out a small breath of relief, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. They hammered out every detail on the spot. All the contracts were rewritten from scratch, every trace of the Goof family name erased, everything processed as ordinary private property transfers. He said a quick goodbye to the old scholar and walked briskly out of the deep, narrow alley, his steps fast and urgent. He went straight home without stopping. The moment he stepped through the gate, he found my father. His face was dark and tense. "Father, I heard some bad news while I was out." My father set down what he was holding, his brow creasing. "What happened? Tell me everything." My brother kept his voice low and repeated exactly what the middleman had told him. A gentry family on the outskirts of the city was suddenly targeted by the authorities. No real crime. They just went after the family's ancestral history, dug up old accusations about improper conduct from past generations, and used that to justify a full crackdown. The whole household was torn apart. The word on the street is that inspections are happening everywhere now, and it's obvious they're going after old established families like ours. My father's expression turned stone cold. His eyes went sharp and hard. He was quiet for a few seconds, then let out a heavy sigh. The situation is closing in even faster than I expected. Much faster. Good thing we moved quickly. I haven't been sitting idle either. These past few days, I've been exchanging all our stored ration tickets. Grain, meat, oil, salt, fabric, every kind of household ticket we had. I got rid of every regional one and traded them all for nationally valid vouchers. My father immediately sent someone to fetch me. I walked in calmly, but the moment I heard what he had to say, my whole body went rigid. His face was grave, his voice barely above a whisper. Wanwan, your second brother just brought back bad news from the old city. A gentry family on the outskirts was suddenly investigated. No real offense, just accusations dug up about their ancestors' so-called improper conduct.
They were shut down just like that.
The crackdowns are spreading, and they're targeting old families like ours. We need to move faster on everything. All regional ration tickets get exchanged for national ones. All remaining properties get sold as quickly as possible. Cash in hand, supplies stockpiled. If there's anything on your end that still needs doing, speed it up. I felt the blood drain from my face. My fingers clenched the edge of my sleeve, so tight my knuckles went white. This kind of targeted persecution, digging into family histories, going after old wealthy households, wasn't supposed to start for another 2 years. At the very least, it shouldn't have spread widely for at least another 6 months. How is this possible? I murmured. Why is it happening so much earlier? The timeline had shifted. The comfortable buffer we thought we had for careful, quiet planning had just been crushed to almost nothing. My father and second brother wrapped up their discussion quickly, and everyone scattered to their tasks without wasting a second. Just 4 days later, the middleman in the old city sent an urgent message. All 40-plus properties, the small courtyards, the pawn shops, the little street-side stores, had been sold successfully. Every last payment collected in full. The total came to over 300,000 in new paper currency. In 1950, 300,000 was an absolutely staggering sum of money. Meanwhile, my third brother, Gu Yang, was handling the countryside. As the sun dipped low one evening, he came pedaling back into the city on an old bicycle, covered in dust, looking worn out. He had spent the whole day riding from village to village, his legs sore and his throat dry, weighed down by frustration. Selling farmland in the countryside looked straightforward, but it was anything but. Those farmers might have seemed simple and honest, but they were sharp as knives when it came to money. The moment they heard the Gu family was unloading land in bulk, they banded together immediately, whispering, scheming, ganging up to push the price down. Your family must be desperate for cash, right? Land only loses value the longer you hold it. Why not give us a discount? Nobody wants to buy extra land in times like these. Just sell it cheap and be done with it. They crowded around him, haggling and stalling, every word designed to squeeze out a better deal. My third brother's face darkened. He tightened his grip on the handlebars and spoke in a tone that was firm without being hostile. Yes, my family needs to free up some cash. But ancestral farmland doesn't get sold at a loss. The market price is what it is. Take it or leave it. If you don't want it, I'll ride over to the next village. Plenty of people would jump at land this good. Think carefully, because once I leave, this offer doesn't come back. Our soil is some of the richest around. Where else are you going to find fields like these? Other families selling land would mark the price up. We're the ones being fair, selling at honest market value. We won't cheat you, but we won't let ourselves get cheated either. A few blunt sentences, and he shut down their little alliance right there on the spot. Country folk might dress plainly and look harmless, but underneath they were calculating and shrewd. The instant they smelled urgency, they circled like wolves, making excuses about farming not being profitable anymore, claiming land values were about to drop, doing everything they could to force a bargain price. My third brother had spent days riding back and forth between villages, putting up with sour faces, listening to snide remarks, and grinding through one tough negotiation after another. He had to stay patient through all of it. It was exhausting work. The farmland outside the city was a huge problem. The fields, orchards, and farm estates covered such a vast area that selling them in large chunks was out of the question. One big land sale would create too much noise, the authorities would notice immediately, and neighbors would start asking dangerous questions. So my third brother had no choice but to break everything into small pieces, selling acre by acre, negotiating household by household, riding from village to village. Luckily, Guyang was the kind of person who knew everyone. He had friends and connections on both sides of every fence, in the city and out in the countryside. He was smooth, resourceful, and popular. He had already spread the word far and wide through his network, using his reputation and personal relationships to draw in buyers. Plenty of local villagers, merchants who had recently settled in the area, and smaller landowners came forward to buy, not because the deals were irresistible, but because they trusted him personally. The rural properties should have been the hardest and slowest to move. Instead, my third brother cleared them all out in just 2 days, making him the fastest of the 3 brothers by far. The scattered farmland sold for a total of $210,000. The countryside estates, mountain farms, and rural villas brought in another $70,000. Altogether, Guyang collected $280,000 in new currency. Back in the city, my eldest brother wrapped up his side of things on the same day. Every prime storefront, riverside warehouse, and shipping-related business had been sold off. Because our family had been in the maritime trade for years, a large portion of the payment came in old silver ingots and traditional silver currency, all converted at fair rates. His total came to $1,730,000 in silver and cash combined. The only property we kept was the main estate where we were still living. My third brother had mostly followed the rule my second brother passed along, except only new paper currency. But out in the countryside, many farmers simply didn't have cash. Some could only pay in silver dollars, silver ingots, or even small gold bars. When that happened, he didn't want to make the call on his own, so he rode back home to ask my father. He walked into the inner courtyard and found me already there, talking quietly with my father. He paused in the doorway and spoke up casually. "Father, little sister, I've got a question. A lot of the farmers can't pay in paper money. They're offering silver coins, silver ingots, gold bars instead." Second brother said we should only take the new currency. So, do I accept these or turn them away? I looked up, keeping my voice steady. Third brother, it's fine. Take everything they offer. Silver, gold, whatever, just price it fairly and bring it all back. I'll handle it from here. He stared at me for a second, looking me up and down with mild surprise. Then he grinned. Well, look at that. Our little sister's all grown up, talking business like she runs the place. All right, I trust you. I'll take it all. Your call. My father nodded too, his face serious. With things moving this fast, speed is what matters most. The sooner we cash out and pull everything together, the safer we are. If gold and silver close a deal faster, take it. We'll sort it all out afterward. The 3 of us agreed instantly. My third brother looked relieved, turned on his heel, and hurried back out of the city to finish his work. No more worrying about what form the payment came in, just pushing to get everything done. Everyone in the family was running at full speed now, not a moment to spare. I spent my days pulling double duty, collecting and storing all the incoming payments, organizing our assets, and helping my parents plan the banquet. Over the past few days, I had been busy ordering ingredients and supplies in bulk, and we hired 5 or 6 of the best chefs in the city to come cook at our estate. The whole family agreed to hold the celebration feast tomorrow, a proper banquet for our closest relatives and old friends. It would look perfectly normal from the outside, keeping up appearances and making sure no one got suspicious about what we were really doing. And as if we didn't have enough on our plates, there were other headaches piling up at home too. Once the banquet kicked off tomorrow, every prominent family friend, neighbor, and business partner in the city would come through our doors. The festive atmosphere would be the perfect cover for everything we'd been doing behind the scenes. But my mother had something else weighing on her mind. My grandparents were coming home from Hongfu Mountain tomorrow. They had been up there for a full month on a Buddhist retreat, completely cut off from everything happening down below. She sat fidgeting with her handkerchief, brow furrowed, and spoke to my father in a worried voice. "Dear, your parents have been meditating on that mountain for a month. They have no idea what's been going on. We've secretly sold off farmland, estates, shops, houses, an enormous amount of family property. The moment they come home, they're going to notice sooner or later." She paused, then continued carefully. "Your mother only has 2 sons left, you and your younger brother. She loves you both, but she's always favored the younger one. If she finds out we sold off ancestral properties without telling anyone, we'll never hear the end of it." My father picked up his teacup, his voice steady and low. "Don't worry. My father has always been a sensible man, clear-headed, able to see the big picture. As long as he's there, my mother won't go too far, even if she sides with second brother's family. Besides, we didn't sell the main estate we're living in. I'll explain the situation honestly. The world is getting more dangerous. Holding on to empty land and idle shops is just a drain, and pulling everything in is the smart move for the long run. They'll understand. But what about your brother?" My mother pressed on. "He's settled in Shanghai with his family and isn't coming back for now. But the moment your mother returns to the estate, she'll start going on about him every other day. It won't be long before they show up claiming they're here to visit her, when really they just want to leech off us. Your brother is petty, greedy, and full of schemes. If he comes here and sees that we've sold everything, he's going to cause serious trouble. Let him try," my father said flatly, a cold edge in his voice. "As long as he stays in Shanghai, he can't stir up anything. We tell nobody, and he won't figure things out anytime soon." Even as he said it, I could see the heaviness in my father's eyes. They were brothers from the same mother. If his younger brother hadn't been so selfish and calculating, things never would have gotten this bad between them. I sat quietly listening to my parents talk, and my mind was perfectly clear. My grandmother wasn't a bad person. During the hard years, she had lost several children one after another, and only 2 sons survived, my father and my uncle. When you're old and you've lost that much, it's only natural to favor the weaker one, the one who knows how to play sweet. I understood that, but the memories from my past life flashed through my mind. My uncle, desperate to protect his comfortable life in Shanghai, had gone so far as to side with the authorities. He personally betrayed our family, fabricated accusations, reported us, smeared our name, and shoved the Gu family straight into the line of fire. While we fled for our lives, starving and humiliated, he watched from the other side with cold eyes. He seized the chaos as his chance and grabbed every last piece of Gu family wealth for himself. Then he and his family slipped away, without looking back. My fingers curled slightly, but my expression stayed perfectly calm. This time, I would never let that happen again. I looked up and spoke softly. "Mother, don't overthink it. The properties have already been dealt with. All the money and supplies are stored safely. Second uncle is far away in Shanghai. He can't reach us right now. When the day comes that he shows up, we'll be ready for him." My father looked around at the room full of wooden chests and shifted the mood, teasing me lightly. "Wan, this is our family's entire fortune right here. You'd better not secretly keep any of it for yourself." I smiled gently. "Don't worry, father. Every last coin is accounted for. The total is 3,165,249 yuan. Over 3 million in 1950s money. Even saying the number out loud is frightening." My father chuckled and patted the top of my head. "Out in the courtyard, your 3 brothers have already packed up their personal belongings, about a dozen large wooden crates each. Clothes, valuables, treasured items, personal things, all sorted and boxed up. They've only kept what they need for daily wear. Store all of those in your space, too. Right now, the only thing we have left is this main estate we're living in and some larger furniture. After the banquet tomorrow, go ahead and store whatever else needs to be put away." I nodded obediently, but inside I felt a warm glow thinking about my 3 brothers. My father had simply told them to pack up their belongings, and without a single question, They trusted him completely and did exactly as asked. That's what real family looks like. The enormous secret, my rebirth, the storage space, everything, was known only to 3 people: my father, my mother, and me. Nobody else had any idea, not even our closest relatives. My space was already overflowing with supplies. I had grown up as the daughter of the richest family in Jiangnan, so luxury was nothing new to me. But these past few days, I had been eating like royalty on purpose, the finest banquet quality dishes every single meal. Crystal pork, crab meat, lions head meatballs, Buddha jumps over the wall, braised abalone, shark fin soup, honey glazed sea cucumber, pigeon stewed with matsutake mushrooms, bird's nest desserts, deer antler tonics, every dish fit for the most extravagant table. We had stockpiled enormous quantities of premium ingredients and rare, medicinal treasures. Not just Chinese delicacies either. We bought bulk shipments of Western imports too. Powdered milk, butter, coffee, chocolate, foreign liquor, fine canned goods, Western spices, imported fabrics, and skincare products. Thousand-year ginseng, wild mountain ginseng, donkey hide gelatin, cordyceps, deer antler, snow swallow. Every kind of precious supplement filled entire corners of my space. I slept soundly that night, and the next morning arrived right on schedule. Our estate was a grand 6-courtyard compound, and it was dressed up beautifully for the occasion. The front courtyard held traditional Chinese banquet tables, elegant and classic, set up for the older generation and our long-standing family friends. The rear courtyard featured a Western-style buffet, long tables draped in fine cloth, covered with dainty cakes, cream pastries, macarons, cookies, puddings, cold platters, fruit arrangements, flower tea, and imported wines. Modern and impressive. Every important person in the city came through our gates that day. Wealthy merchants, old aristocratic families, local gentry, prominent figures from every circle, all gathered under our roof. The banquet was lively on the surface, clinking glasses, laughter, chatter. But underneath the noise, small groups of guests huddled together, whispering with tension in their eyes. One wealthy merchant scanned the room, then leaned close to the man beside him and dropped his voice. Have you noticed? The Gu family has been making huge moves lately. Farmland outside the city, country estates, shops downtown. They've been unloading everything at an alarming speed. The other man frowned and nodded gravely. I saw it too. The past couple of years, things have been getting stranger by the day. Controls tightening everywhere. Something feels off. Everyone wants to turn their fixed assets into cash while they still can. A third man sighed, his voice carrying a hint of fear.
Exactly.
It looks calm on the surface, but a storm is building. The Gu family must have caught wind of it early to be moving this fast. Then one of them picked up his teacup, walked over to my father, and put on a polite smile, though his eyes were probing and sharp. Brother Gu, your family's business has always been rock solid. So why the sudden fire sale? Land, houses, shops. All at once? Don't tell me the shipping business hit a wall. My father slowly set down his wine glass, furrowed his brow deeply, and let out a long, weary sigh. He looked exhausted and defeated, exactly as he intended. I won't hide it from you, old friends. We had no choice. The shipping market has collapsed these past few years. Sea routes are locked down tighter and tighter. Goods stuck at the docks, payments never coming in, losses piling up everywhere. Warehouses full, cash flow completely dried up. The whole operation couldn't keep running. We had to sell off land and shops just to plug the holes and keep the family fed. The performance was flawless. But right at that moment, heavy, synchronized footsteps echoed from outside the courtyard gate. Deliberate, forceful steps that radiated authority, marching straight toward the inner yard. The noisy banquet went dead silent in an instant. Every head turned toward the entrance. A group of men in matching uniforms strode through the gate. Their faces were cold and hard, their expressions severe, their presence intimidating. They swept their eyes across the entire gathering without a word of greeting. The air froze. Every laugh, every conversation, cut off like a knife. The leader stepped forward, jaw clenched, eyes sharp as blades, scanning the crowd of guests before speaking in a voice like iron. "Who is the head of the Gu household? Step forward and answer our questions." My father's heart sank, but not a trace of it showed on his face. He stepped forward calmly, his posture straight, his expression composed and dignified. "Sir, I am Gu Honyuan, head of the Gu family. I wasn't expecting visitors. What official business brings you here?" The officer moved closer, his gaze locked onto my father, every word heavy with pressure. "We've received a formal report. Your family has recently been selling off large quantities of land, residences, and commercial properties across the city, on a scale that has drawn significant public attention. In addition, you've been purchasing Western imported luxury goods in bulk and hoarding rare, expensive supplements. Your household spending has been lavish and excessive. The entire city is currently under strict review for misconduct and illegal activity. Your actions are suspected of profiteering and speculation, with possible ties to pre-revolutionary legacy issues. You are under suspicion of being classified as Black 5. We are here under orders to conduct a thorough investigation. Every member of this household will be questioned. Nothing is to be hidden." Those words hit the courtyard like a bomb. Every guest's face went white. Chopsticks clattered onto tables. Nobody dared make a sound. Every eye in the courtyard locked onto my family. Tension, suspicion, fear, all mixed together in those stares. The whole place felt like it was suffocating under the pressure. Right at that razor-edge moment, I stepped out from the covered walkway. I had prepared for this. I deliberately made myself look deathly ill. Face painted chalk white, lips drained of all color, brow pinched tight, my thin frame swaying slightly. I leaned against a pillar with one hand, my steps slow and unsteady, looking like a girl who could collapse at the slightest breeze. I lifted my hazy, unfocused eyes and spoke in a voice that was soft, weak, and roughened with illness. "Sir, please look into this carefully. This is all a misunderstanding." The lead officer turned toward me. Seeing how frail and sickly I looked, the hard edge in his expression softened just a fraction. "Go ahead, girl. Tell me what's been misunderstood." I pressed my hand gently against my chest, eyes lowered, looking fragile and wronged, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not long ago, I suddenly fell gravely ill without any warning. I was unconscious for days, completely unresponsive. Every neighbor on our street saw it with their own eyes. Everyone knows. It's not made up." I raised my gaze slightly, a faint redness around my eyes, my tone full of helpless sincerity. "During that time, my parents were frantic. They couldn't sleep, running everywhere, exhausting themselves searching for the best doctors and medicine to keep me alive. With both of them consumed by my illness, nobody was minding the family businesses. Everything ground to a halt, shipments stopped, payments fell through, and the losses kept piling up until the debts became unbearable. If it weren't for saving my life," I said, my voice trembling slightly, my eyes full of earnest pleading, "my parents would never have touched the land and properties our ancestors left us. They sold what they had to because they needed to cover the business losses and keep the family afloat, and also to pay for my medicine and treatments to nurse me back from the edge." The officer's gaze stayed heavy on me. He pressed further. "Then explain the large quantities of Western imports, the expensive medicines, the luxury supplements. Those aren't things an ordinary household needs." I drew a shallow breath and answered in my most honest, fragile voice. "My illness damaged me at the root. All my organs are weakened, my body's foundation is completely broken. The doctor warned us again and again. My constitution is too frail for plain, rough food. I need gentle, refined meals and daily nourishment to have any hope of recovering. Thousand-year ginseng, bird's nest, donkey hide gelatin, cordyceps. I need all of these every single day. The cost is enormous, but it's what the doctor prescribed." I paused briefly, keeping my tone open and matter-of-fact. "As for the Western foods and imported goods, we're not indulging in luxury. The doctor specifically recommended them to ease my digestion and help my weakened body absorb nutrients. Everything was bought for my recovery, nothing more. We would never spend lavishly without reason." The officer frowned and went quiet, studying me with a searching look. I saw my opening and pushed forward, carefully planting the groundwork for our eventual move north. My expression stayed calm and resigned. Our family has been asking everywhere for better medical options. We've heard that deep in the mountains of the Northeast, there are reclusive healers and shamans who specialize in treating people with long-term weakness and stubborn illnesses, experts in rebuilding a broken body from the inside. So my family has already decided. Once I'm a little more stable, we plan to move north to the Northeast to settle down permanently, so I can seek treatment and recover in peace. All we want is a quiet life focused on healing. We have never dared break any rules, and we would never dream of profiteering or going against the way things are. Every word came out sincere and clear, backed up by my ghostly pale face and fragile appearance. There was nothing to pick apart. Several older neighbors who lived nearby nodded along and spoke up to back my story. One elderly man stepped forward, his voice genuine and firm. "Sir, everything this girl says is the truth. The Goof family's young miss suddenly collapsed not long ago. The whole street knew about it. They were rushing to find doctors, running themselves ragged. We all saw it with our own eyes." "That's right," another neighbor chimed in quickly. "A perfectly healthy girl struck down by sudden illness. Heartbreaking. Of course the family spent a lot to save her. They can afford it at least. If it were a poor family, just go outside the city walls and count how many abandoned babies and orphans there are. It's a hard world out there." One after another, the neighbors backed up my story. Every word true. The officer looked around the room, his gaze sweeping across the guests and neighbors before settling back on my pale, frail face. His expression loosened slightly, but he didn't let us off yet. His brow stayed furrowed, his tone heavy. "What you're saying sounds reasonable, girl, and the neighbors confirm your illness was real. But selling off that much property, stockpiling foreign goods, spending heavily on luxury supplements, every one of those things raises flags. The report against your family was filed with evidence. We can't just drop it based on a few words." The mood sank again. Everyone could tell this wasn't going to end that easily. My father's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew darker and more guarded. Then my eldest brother stepped forward, calm and composed, carrying the polished confidence of someone who had spent years managing business relationships. He gave a slight bow, his voice warm but not submissive. "Sir, we understand you have a duty to fulfill. No objections there. But every family has its struggles. My sister's life was at stake. The business was drowning. All of it is true. The Goof family has followed the rules for generations. We've never touched anything illegal, and we would never go against the new regulations." As he spoke, he gave the faintest signal with his eyes. Our old steward, standing under the eaves, caught it immediately. He quietly stepped aside, picked up a finely crafted black lacquered box, and circled around to the officer's side. With a movement so subtle that almost no one could see, he slipped a small gold bar into the officer's hand. My eldest brother dropped his voice, so only the two of them could hear. "Just a small token of appreciation. Nothing grand. Consider it tea money for the trouble of coming all this way. The Goof family has been rooted in the city for a long time. We've always kept our heads down. We hope you'll be understanding. We'll be seeing each other around after all. It's always better to leave a little room." The officer's eyes flicked to the wooden box, and his fingers lightly touched the gold bar in his palm. He could feel exactly what it was worth. His face didn't change. He didn't accept it openly, but he didn't push it away either. The message had been received. The Goof family was the oldest, wealthiest name in the city. Deep roots, connections running in every direction. No ordinary official would want to truly make an enemy of us. Besides, before coming here, someone above had quietly hinted to him. The Goof family has a deep foundation. There's no solid criminal case. No need to push things to the extreme. My third brother jumped in smoothly, his tone friendly and easygoing. "Exactly, sir. Every family has its troubles, right? My sister is barely holding on as it is. All we want is to get through our days peacefully. Who would dare cause problems? From here on out, we'll keep a low profile and stay out of people's way. No more attention, we promise." The older neighbors piled on with more support, one after another. The Goof family has always been decent folk. They'd never do anything underhanded, The poor girl is so sick. Please don't make things harder for them. Layer upon layer, face given, favors traded, witnesses vouching, and a quiet gift slipped into their right hand. Everything in place. The officer's expression gradually softened. He found his way to step down gracefully, speaking in a firm but measured tone. Since there are legitimate reasons behind all this, and the neighbors can collectively vouch for the family, and the Gu household clearly has genuine difficulties, this was not intentional speculation or defiance of policy. The report filed today will be set aside for now. Then his voice hardened again, maintaining his official authority. But let me make this clear. The citywide crackdowns are getting stricter by the day. Black 5 classifications, profiteering charges. They're enforcing these with zero tolerance. Your family has been making far too much noise lately. People are already watching you. From this point forward, keep your heads down. Cut back on spending. Stay in line. If another report comes in, no amount of people speaking on your behalf will save you. It won't end this gently next time. My father clasped his hands together and bowed respectfully. Thank you for your understanding and guidance, sir. We take your words to heart. We will be careful in everything we do from now on. The officer nodded slightly. His eyes drifted one more time toward the lacquered box, and he said coolly, "Take that back. This is official business, no need for that sort of thing. Favors are favors, rules are rules. Conduct yourselves well." He refused it out loud, but he didn't press the matter or make trouble over it. In practice, the whole thing was over. His fingers stayed closed around what was already in his hand. He didn't linger. "Let's go." His team lined up and marched out, looking every bit like officials who had done their jobs by the book. But everyone involved understood what had really happened. Once they were well out of sight, the suffocating tension in the courtyard finally broke. The guests let out their breath at last. Every single person there was sharp enough to read between the lines. They all knew exactly how this had played out. My father raised his hand with an easy smile, smoothing everything over. "Sorry for the scare, everyone. Just a small family misunderstanding. Please keep eating and drinking. Don't let it ruin the mood." The guests quickly jumped in, raising their cups and steering the conversation far away from anything about our family selling property or spending habits. Nobody dared touch those topics again. The Western buffet in the back courtyard was still overflowing with elegant pastries, cold platters, and flower teas. The traditional Chinese banquet in the front was steaming hot. But underneath all the festivity, every guest was just going through the motions, polite smiles hiding cautious, calculating minds. My maid helped me back to a side courtyard to rest. I still had my sickly, ghostly pallor on full display, looking quiet and frail. No one doubted me for a second. But the moment I was away from the crowd, I didn't go lie down. I slipped around to the back kitchen instead. The 5 or 6 hired chefs were working at a furious pace, Chinese main courses and Western desserts coming out of the kitchen nonstop, the whole compound thick with the smell of good cooking. The kitchen storage area was packed to bursting. Fresh ingredients, dried goods, supplements, Western canned foods, imported dairy, fancy sweets. Deliveries kept pouring in without pause. I sent my maid to wait outside, went into the kitchen storeroom alone, and shut the door and windows tight behind me. My mother had already quietly followed and stationed herself outside the door to keep watch. The two of us worked in silent coordination. She made sure no servant wandered close enough to see anything. Inside the storeroom, every kind of delicacy was piled high. Buddha jumps over the wall, braised sea cucumber in abalone sauce, braised fish lip, slow-cooked pork knuckle, roast duck, honey-glazed bear paw, partridge stewed with matsutake mushrooms, rock sugar bird's nest, medicinal gelatin cakes, all of it ready and waiting. On the western side, cream mousse, caramel pudding, butter cookies, layered fruit cakes, box chocolates, plus crates of imported coffee, condensed milk, dried fruits, and all sorts of preserved canned goods. I worked fast, sorting and stacking, pulling everything into my space as quickly as I could. Sweat beaded on my forehead before long. Outside, the chefs kept calling for more supplies. Servants ran back and forth on endless shopping trips, bringing load after load. Everything passed through my hands and vanished into the space. My mother stood guard outside, casually intercepting any servant who wandered too close, making small talk to send them on their way. But I wasn't just storing the fancy banquet food. I had specifically prepared a large stockpile of plain, ordinary things, the kind of food that would keep well on a long journey and fill our stomachs without attracting any attention. Coarse grain flatbreads, compressed mixed grain biscuits, hard-baked wheat rolls, dried steamed bread slices, regular steamed buns, twisted rolls, sugar-layered pastries, stuffed buns, steamed dumplings, all easy to eat on the road. And in my space they'd stay perfectly warm and fresh forever. Then there were old-fashioned braised dried tofu, 5-spice boiled eggs, dried radish strips, salt-pickled mustard greens, and several hundred jars of various pickled vegetables that I'd had our cook prepare in advance. Filling, satisfying, and completely unremarkable, the kind of food nobody would look twice at in these times. I also stored blocks of malt candy and plain roasted sunflower seeds, good for snacking, easy to keep long-term, perfect for settling a hungry stomach during travel. None of this food was flashy. It looked exactly like what any ordinary family would eat. Even when we eventually headed north and settled somewhere new, pulling these out wouldn't raise a single eyebrow. No hint of luxury, no suspicion. My mother stayed at her post, giving a quiet little cough whenever servants walked nearby as our signal. We worked together seamlessly. In just half an hour, every last item piled up in that storeroom. The extravagant dishes, the rare supplies, all of it was safely stored away. In an era where everyone was expected to live simply and resources were scarce, this kind of fine food and premium goods would have stood out dangerously. But in the chaos ahead, these supplies would be our lifeline. I knew in my heart that once we headed north to the wastelands, we'd be putting down roots in that harsh, freezing land for the rest of our lives. The chances of ever returning to Jiangnan were almost zero. The flavors of our southern homeland. Someday, even a single taste would be an impossible luxury. But thanks to my space, everything stored inside stayed perfectly preserved, temperature locked, flavor sealed, never spoiling. So I took full advantage of today's banquet and its endless stream of purchases to have the kitchen and the shopping servants buy massive quantities of Jiangnan's specialty foods. Every last bit went straight into storage. I had the kitchen staff working through the night to prepare everything. 300 portions of osmanthus sticky rice stuffed lotus root, soft, sweet, fragrant with that familiar Jiangnan flower scent I'd grown up eating. 260 Suzhou-style braised soy sauce ducks, 280 honey-glazed soy geese, rich in flavor, the meat firm enough to keep well. 350 portions of Taihu shrimp-stuffed meatballs, 320 crab-filled soup dumplings with thin wrappers bursting with that fresh southern taste. 400 victory cakes, 360 mint mung bean cakes, classic Jiangnan pastries, delicately sweet. Bamboo shoot stew, preserved vegetable braised pork, red bean dumplings. In sweet soup, taro and osmanthus syrup, pickled radishes, pickled cucumbers, wind-dried sausages, soy-cured ducks, sesame crisps, pepper salt pastries, hundreds and hundreds of portions of each. I even stored away hundreds of pounds of fresh water chestnuts, fox nuts, water caltrop, and other aquatic specialties unique to our southern water towns, locking all that delicate freshness inside the space forever. Every single item was a taste woven into our bones. These were the flavors my whole family had eaten since childhood. The great northern wasteland where we were headed was remote, loosely governed, and home to simple, honest folk. Far from the political storms and class purges tearing through the cities, it was one of the few places in the entire country where a family could hide, avoid raids and public trials, and survive the coming madness in peace. For that, I was willing to fill my entire space with the taste of Jiangnan. Hundreds upon hundreds of hometown dishes, packed away so that even when we were living in the frozen north, our tongues could still find their way home. Even if we spent the rest of our lives far from this land, drifting through decades of turmoil, my family would always be able to sit down to a meal that tasted like where we came from. That mattered more than I could put into words. The afternoon sun was starting to slant when the last guest finally left. Before any of us could catch our breath, a servant rushed into the courtyard and spoke in a low, hurried voice. "Master, Madam, the carriage from Hongfu Mountain is almost at the lane entrance. The old master and old madam are back. My mother shot to her feet, tension flooding her face. Finally, they must be exhausted from the road. Get tea and refreshments ready immediately. She paused, worry clouding her eyes. I just don't know what to say if your mother asks about the properties. My father stayed calm. Don't worry.
My father is a reasonable man.
He sees things clearly. We'll tell them the truth. The world is getting unstable. The idle properties were just a drain, so we pulled everything in to stay safe. We won't mention anything about fleeing or relocating. Even if my mother takes the second family side, my father will keep things under control. It won't turn into a disaster. Before long, 2 old-fashioned carriages rolled to a stop in front of our main gate. Servants hurried forward to lift the curtains. My grandfather stepped out first, white-haired, wearing a plain Buddhist robe, his expression serene but his eyes still sharp with authority. He carried the quiet, centered air of a man who had spent years cultivating inner peace. My grandmother followed, right behind. Her face was kindly enough, but there was something in her eyes, a small, pinched favoritism that she couldn't quite hide. The moment her feet touched the ground, she was already looking around the estate, and the first words out of her mouth were exactly what I expected. Eldest son, is everything all right at home? Up on that mountain, I prayed every day, but couldn't stop worrying. Has your brother written from Shanghai? How is he doing over there? Every single sentence was about my uncle and his family.
Not a word about us first.
The favoritism was as plain as daylight. My father stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Father, mother, you must be tired from the journey. Please come in and rest. Second uncle's family is doing well in Shanghai. They rarely write, so things must be going smoothly for them. Everyone filed into the main hall, sat down, and tea was served. My grandmother took a slow sip, then let her eyes wander around the courtyard. Something felt different, quieter, emptier than before. She couldn't hold back. I've been hearing that you sold off quite a lot of farmland and country estates recently. And several of the best shops in the city have changed hands too? Something this big, and you didn't think to discuss it with us first. There it was. The questions we'd been expecting. My mother's hands tightened at her sides. She stood quietly, not daring to speak. My grandfather raised his eyes to my father, his voice calm and even. Go ahead. Explain why you suddenly sold off so much ancestral property. My father didn't rush. He laid it out clearly, point by point. Father, mother, the political atmosphere in the city has been growing more tense by the day. Controls are tightening everywhere, and the world feels increasingly unstable. Our farmland outside the city has been leased out for years with no one actually working it, just losses piling up. The country estates and empty houses sit vacant, costing money and earning nothing. The streetfront shops are mostly sublet for thin margins, and the regulations keep getting heavier. His tone was sincere and practical. I thought long and hard about this. Rather than holding on to scattered properties that will only attract trouble and drain our resources, it makes more sense to convert them into stable, secure assets. Our family can settle down, stay in the main estate, and live quietly. On top of that, Wanwan's sudden illness cost us enormously in medical bills, and the shipping business has been bleeding money for years. Selling the idle properties helped cover those debts too. My grandfather nodded slowly, understanding clear in his eyes. You've thought it through well. In troubled times, it's wiser to hide your wealth and stay modest than to keep expanding and showing off. Save your money in chaos, buy land in peace. That's the old principle. You've done nothing wrong. With my grandfather's approval settling the matter, my grandmother couldn't push too hard even if she was unhappy. She frowned and muttered under her breath. Still, it's a shame. Land passed down from our ancestors, gone just like that. If money was tight, you could have sold less. Why make such a big fuss about it? Mother, I kept things well within reason, my father replied smoothly. The main estate where we've lived for generations, our true foundation, hasn't been touched at all. Everything I sold was outlying property, sitting idle. None of it affects our core holdings. Just then, my 3 brothers walked in together and greeted our grandparents one by one with proper bows. My grandmother's face softened at the sight of her grandsons. She looked each of them over fondly. But even now, she couldn't stop herself from circling back to her favorite topic, my uncle's family in Shanghai. Your second uncle's family has it hard over there in Shanghai. City living is expensive, and they're stretched thin. If this household has anything to spare in the future, you boys in the first branch should help them out. You're all blood, after all. My third brother's jaw clenched, and he nearly spoke up, but my eldest brother caught his eye with a quick look and stopped him. My eldest brother answered warmly, "Don't worry, grandmother. Family is family. Of course we'll look after each other." A few vague words, and the old woman was pacified for the moment. My grandfather, sharp and perceptive as always, had clearly sensed the undercurrents in the world outside. He gave the family a quiet piece of advice. From now on, keep a low profile. Don't seek attention. Cut back on spending. Follow the rules. The city is under heavy scrutiny right now. Don't make enemies. Don't invite trouble. Living peacefully is what matters most. Those words landed right on the nerve. The investigation earlier that day was still fresh in everyone's mind. But before anyone could respond further, I had just stepped through the doorway when my grandmother's furious shout exploded across the room. My grandfather had barely sat down with his tea when her outburst made him frown sharply. She was clutching her handkerchief, her face dark with rage, her voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "Gu Hongyuan, you explain yourself right now. What is going on here?" The personal servants who had attended to her for decades, her old nursemaid, her little maids, her private cook, every single one of them was gone. The familiar faces she'd known for years had almost entirely vanished from the estate, replaced by people she'd never seen before. My grandmother's chest heaved violently, her eyes wide with disbelief. Every single one of my personal servants gone. Sent away without a word to me. The women who took care of my daily needs, who looked after my Buddhist prayer hall, who cooked my meals exactly the way I liked them. I'd had them for half my life. How could you just throw them out? And now this entire Great Gu estate has been stripped down to nothing but this one house standing all alone. Are you trying to destroy this family? Are you trying to leave us with nowhere to turn? Her voice climbed higher, cracking with fury and hurt. A respected family with generations of wealth and standing, and you've torn it all apart. Servants dismissed, farmland sold, shops emptied out. What on earth are you scheming? I can't understand it, and I won't stand for it. The room went tight with tension. My mother stood frozen, not daring to breathe a word. I kept my eyes down, perfectly still and silent. My three brothers stood with grave faces. Everyone knew. This time, grandmother was truly enraged. In the past, my father had always been the dutiful son. He would patiently soothe her, give in, smooth things over, let her have her way to keep the peace. But today, faced with her complete refusal to see reality, something in him shifted. His expression went cold and hard. For the first time, he didn't back down. "Mother, are you done? Can you please calm down?" That one sentence stunned her into silence. Even my grandfather looked up with a flash of surprise, but he didn't say anything. My father's eyes were dark and steady as he laid out the truth, cutting straight through her illusions. You only see the properties being sold and the servants being let go. All you care about is keeping your old attendants and your old way of living. But you refuse to look at what's happening in the world outside these walls. This is 1950. The old society is over. This spring, the government passed the new marriage law, feudal customs abolished, equality between men and women enforced. In February, the state council issued strict orders banning opium and old vices nationwide. Everywhere, they're pushing production and thrift, cracking down on extravagance. Wealthy households are forbidden from keeping large numbers of servants and putting on grand displays. He stepped forward, his voice growing heavier. By autumn, there will be a nationwide campaign to suppress counter-revolutionaries, rooting out spies, tyrants, old power structures, and reactionary secret societies. Any old family that still holds visible wealth, maintains high status, clings to old customs, and keeps a household full of servants will be a primary target. Every day, people are filing reports against their neighbors. Everyone is watching everyone else. One wrong step, one accusation of being a feudal remnant or a reactionary, and at best they seize your property. At worst, the entire family goes down. Our family used to be the richest in Jiangnan. We're the tallest tree in the forest. If we don't voluntarily downsize, cut our staff, and stop drawing attention, do you want to just sit here and wait for them to come knocking with charges and confiscation? Orders. My grandmother was momentarily speechless, but she still wouldn't accept it. Even if the world has changed, what's wrong with going to a temple to pray and live simply? How is that a problem? It's a huge problem, my father said, his tone absolute, without a shred of softness. Mother, I'm telling you, and father, this one final time. From now on, you must never go up to the mountains to visit temples, gather for prayer sessions, or burn incense and worship Buddha. Feudal superstition has been officially classified as a corrupt relic of the old society. It is explicitly banned. Out there, every street committee, every neighborhood, every government office is holding meetings to study patriotic pledges and eliminate feudal practices. Other families are keeping their heads down and blending in, but you spend your days going up the mountain to pray, practically living at the temple. If word gets out, that's textbook feudal backwardness, and it will bring total catastrophe down on the Gu family. My grandfather slowly set down his teacup, his fingertips pressing hard against the table, his face heavy with understanding and regret. Hong Yuan is right, he said quietly. Your mother and I have been living up on Hongfu Mountain, chanting scriptures and meditating day after day, hiding from the world. We had no idea how much everything has changed down here. New policies, new rules, a completely different era. We were stuck in the past like fools, clinging to old ways. If your father hadn't woken up to all this in time, we would have dragged this entire family down with us. My grandmother's shoulders sagged. She stood there frozen, staring at her husband in disbelief. She had lived her whole life as the matriarch of a great family. Servants waiting on her hand and foot, fine silk clothes, gold and jade jewelry, daily prayers at the Buddhist altar. All of it was as natural to her as breathing. In her mind, preserving ancestral property, keeping loyal old servants, honoring the gods, and maintaining proper appearances were simply what decent people did. That was how things had always been. But now everything she had held sacred her entire life had suddenly become dangerous. The realization hit her like a wall. Frustration, confusion, hurt, it all surged up at once. Her nose stung, and her eyes turned red. She bit her lip, fighting back tears. I've lived a good, honest life. I've been kind and charitable. All I did was dress respectably, pray to Buddha, and keep a few servants who'd been with me for decades. What exactly did I do wrong? In all the years before this, my father had always been the obedient son, gentle, patient, never raising his voice, always giving in to keep her happy. But today he was like a different person, cold and immovable, not yielding an inch. Even my grandmother, stubborn as she was, could sense it dimly. The world outside must have become terrifyingly dangerous for her son to act this way. My father looked at her standing there, defiant but lost, and let his gaze drop slowly down to her clothes. She was wearing an elaborate old-style padded jacket and skirt, wide embroidered sleeves, ornate knotted buttons, layered silk trim. It was exactly the kind of outfit a wealthy old society matriarch would wear. It couldn't have stood out more. His brow furrowed hard. Mother, look at what you're wearing. He gestured toward her hem, his voice a mix of weariness and urgency. This kind of wide-sleeved, embroidered, silk-trimmed, old-fashioned clothing doesn't belong in today's world anymore. Right now, this is nothing but an old society costume. Give it a few more years and they'll put outfits like this in a museum behind glass as relics of a bygone era. My grandmother looked down instinctively, running her fingers over the smooth fabric. She protested softly. I've worn clothes like this my whole life. The fabric is soft and comfortable, perfectly clean. Why can't I wear it? It's just clothing. How could a dress cause trouble? Mother, you're being naive. My father shook his head, his tone growing even more severe. The entire city is in the middle of a campaign to destroy old customs and build new ones. Everyone is supposed to live simply and modestly. The women out on the streets all wear plain, rough cotton shirts and simple trousers. Clean, humble, nothing fancy. From now on, whenever you leave this house or even move around at home, you follow what everyone else is doing. All the fine silk, the embroidered formal clothes, they go into a chest at the bottom of a closet. You never wear them outside again. Then his eyes moved. Up to her elaborately styled hair, the traditional bun pinned with ornamental hairpins, and to the gold earrings dangling from her ears and the jade bracelet on her wrist. His expression turned even more serious. Your old-style hair ornaments, the decorative pins, every piece of gold, silver, and jade jewelry you're wearing, all of it comes off. It gets sealed away and hidden. They're cracking down everywhere on luxury and old-fashioned displays. Anyone seen wearing gold and silver or dressing in the old style will be noticed immediately. At best, the neighbors report you and gossip spreads. At worst, they slap a label on you, old regime remnant, feudal holdover, and the consequences will be devastating. My grandmother flinched. Her hand flew to the jade bracelet on her wrist, her face draining of color, her lips trembling. I can't even wear my jewelry? These are things I've treasured my whole life. Everything properly earned and saved over the years. No keepsake, no matter how precious, is worth more than this family's safety. My father refused to budge, his voice final. He had made up his mind to be ruthless about this. The crackdowns are getting tighter every single day. The less attention we draw, the better. And the servants, you may think we've already let enough go, but there are still too many people in this house with loose tongues and wandering eyes. Starting tomorrow, I'm having your daughter-in-law cut the staff down further. We keep only 2 or 3 quiet, reliable people who know how to keep their mouths shut. That's all we need. Every piece of gossip, every rumor, every bit of damaging information that leaks out, it all comes from servants' mouths. My grandmother stood there completely stunned, frozen in place, not knowing what to do with herself. Losing her lifelong servants, changing the clothes she'd worn for decades, taking off her treasured jewelry, cutting the household down to almost nothing. Every single thing my father said was shattering habits she'd built over an entire lifetime. My father saw how lost she looked, but he didn't soften. He pushed forward with the most important point of all. There's one more thing I need to tell both of you. Those private storerooms of yours, the antique ornaments, the old jade and porcelain, the rare collectibles, the expensive curios from the old days, you can't keep them locked away as keepsakes anymore. While there's still a small window before controls get completely locked down, we need to pull everything out and inventory it. I'll have third son reach out through his contacts. He knows plenty of trustworthy people and quietly sell it all off. Convert everything into new paper currency, national ration tickets, and practical supplies that last. My grandfather let out a soft sigh and nodded in agreement. Your mother has lived a sheltered life. She doesn't understand how dangerous things have become. It's natural that she can't accept all this at once. But Hongyuan is telling the truth, every word. In times like these, property and land mean nothing. Antiques and treasures are just anchors that'll drag you under. Only cash, ration tickets, and real supplies can keep a family alive. My grandmother swayed on her feet, her eyes red and brimming, her heart torn in every direction. My father didn't give either of them time to hesitate or second-guess. He understood better than anyone that in Jiangnan cities in 1950, street inspectors and patrol squads were everywhere. The campaign to destroy old customs and crack down on former elites was at full force. A family like ours, old money, old name, impossible to miss, had already been quietly marked by the local authorities. The people in charge moved fast and hit hard. Any household connected to the old feudal world, to big estates and visible wealth, could be raided without warning. Nobody would give us time to slowly adjust. He called the steward over, his expression firm. Go now. Open both of the old master and old madam's private storerooms. Inventory every single item. All the jade, porcelain, gold and silver jewelry, bolts of silk, antique paintings, ornamental pieces, rare collectibles. Pack everything carefully into crates, seal them tight, and move it all to my study under lock and key. And gather up any remaining valuables from around the house into my courtyard. No one goes near them. The steward saw the look on my father's face, didn't dare ask questions, bowed, and went straight to work. My father walked over to his parents, and seeing how tense they'd become, he eased his voice slightly, though his position didn't budge. I'm gathering all the old pieces from the storerooms for safekeeping. The world is getting less stable by the day. Some of it will hold onto securely as a safety net for the family's future. The rest, the pieces that are too old-fashioned, too eye-catching, things we'd never use day to day, I'll have people sell off quietly, bit by bit. Everything gets converted into new currency, plus grain tickets, oil tickets, fabric tickets, the things that actually have value now. My grandmother's face was full of pain, her brow twisted tight, her voice heavy with reluctance. Most of those things I collected one piece at a time over my whole life. And plenty of them were passed down from our ancestors. They've been sitting safely in our storerooms bothering no one. Why do they all have to be sold? My father sighed gently, his expression caught between sympathy and hard reality. Mother, I know it hurts to let go, but the whole city is going after feudal customs and cracking down on wealthy families showing off their old lifestyles. Those antique ornaments, those old jewelry pieces, those silk garments, every one of them is a liability sitting in our house. Compared to keepsakes, keeping this family alive and safe is what matters. While the front of the estate was busy with inventories and packing, the back courtyard was just as active. My mother and I worked together quietly, sorting through everything in the house. The two of us moved in perfect sync, calm and efficient. We had already stopped using the old forms of address. Madam, young miss, all those old society titles had to go. The new era demanded equality, simplicity, plainness. Every trace of the old way of speaking had to be scrubbed clean. My mother picked up an embroidered silk jacket and skirt, her fingers brushing lightly over the delicate needlework. She spoke softly. Wan, sort all the medicinal herbs, jiang and specialties, and dried goods carefully. We don't know what the future holds, and these are things we'll genuinely need. She paused, then deliberately dropped her voice even lower. The extra old-fashioned furniture, the showy decorations, the expensive silks nobody can wear anymore. Pull them all out. Put them in your space. A knowing look crossed her face. Your mother has finally figured out how this world works. Things change fast. Who knows, maybe in 10 or 20 years, all these things will come back into fashion again. I crouched on the ground sorting through odds and ends, working quickly and quietly. I know, Mom. Don't worry about it. I paused mid-sort as something occurred to me. Oh, right, I need to remember. It's Mom now, not Mother. Can't use the old way of saying it anymore. My mom's hand stilled for a moment. Then she shook her head with a tired sigh. This world we live in now. That same evening, the final round of servant dismissals went through. Every remaining extra worker in the household had their wages settled in full and was sent off with dignity. Clean breaks, no lingering connections, fewer people meant fewer loose tongues and less chance of trouble down the road. After careful selection, only 6 workers remained in the entire sprawling estate. All 6 were orphans with no family ties. Clean backgrounds, honest temperaments, hardworking, quiet, tight-lipped, the easiest kind of people to trust. My father looked at the 6 young men standing before him. They were all between 16 and 18 years old, tall and solidly built from years of physical labor. Every one of them had grown up without parents, drifting with no one to depend on. Working at the Gu estate these past years, eating well, staying warm, never beaten or mistreated, had made our home the only real home they'd ever known. You could say my father had practically raised them himself. This was the new society now. Equality for everyone. No more old-fashioned master-servant bonds or forced labor. My father wasn't going to make decisions for them without asking. He spoke calmly and honestly. You've all seen what's been happening. The city is under heavy scrutiny. Old customs being rooted out, old ways being punished. Our family has decided to leave Jiangnan and head north to find a safe, quiet place to settle permanently. The 6 young men stood with their heads slightly bowed, listening carefully. They had already guessed something like this was coming. They knew wealthy families were having a hard time, and they'd quietly worried about what would happen to them. My father continued, I've already sent the other workers away with their full pay. You 6 are the only ones left. I want to hear what you honestly want to do. If you're willing, you can come north with us. It's a long journey. The northeast is cold and the life will be hard. Nothing like the comfort of Jiangnan. His gaze moved slowly across their faces, his voice sincere. Once we're out there, we leave the old master-servant relationship behind. No more old rules. If you truly want to stay with us for the long haul, you'll take the Gu family name. I'll register you as distant nephews in our family records, official names, proper standing. We look after each other. It makes things simpler wherever we go. He deliberately softened his tone, giving each of them room to choose freely. This is the new society. Everything is voluntary. If any of you would rather stay here and make your own way, just say so. I'll pay everything I owe you plus extra money to help you get started. You leave with a clean slate and your freedom. But if you choose to come along, I promise I'll treat you well. Talk it over among yourselves and give me an honest answer. The 6 of them exchanged glances, emotions churning behind their eyes. They were orphans with nowhere to go. No family to return to, no relatives to lean on. If the Gu family let them go, all that awaited them in these chaotic times was drifting from place to place, scraping by, getting pushed around, with no one to turn to. Our family had always treated them decently, never cruel, never stingy. And now we weren't just offering to bring them along. We were offering them a family name, a place in the records, a real identity. For people who had nothing in this world, that was a kindness beyond anything they could have dreamed of. The oldest of the group stepped forward, his expression earnest and respectful. Sir, no, I mean Mr. Gu, all 6 of us are orphans. We've had no home our whole lives. These past years, it was only thanks to the Gu family that we had food to eat and a roof over our heads. If we went out on our own in times like these, we wouldn't survive. Another one spoke up quickly, his eyes steady with determination. We're not afraid of hard work, and we're not afraid of the cold up north. As long as we have a place to land and honest work to do, we can handle anything. The leader nodded firmly, his voice solemn. We all grew up by your side. Every one of us is willing to go north with you. We'll gladly take the Gu name and be your family's distant kin. From here on out, we'll keep our heads down, work hard, keep our mouths shut, and never bring trouble to the Gu family. You have our word. The other 5 raised their heads in unison, nodding hard, and answered together. We're willing. My father looked at 6 young faces full of sincerity and quiet desperation, and I could see something soften behind his eyes. He nodded slowly.
Good.
Since you've chosen to stay and take the Gu name, then from today we're family. No masters, no servants, just people helping each other. Keep a low profile, dear part, live simply and we'll get through this storm together. Since none of them had ever been given proper names, my father decided right then and there to give each of them simple, easy-to-remember names to carry into their new lives. You've never had real names before, so let's fix that now. Keep it simple and practical, nothing that draws attention. My father looked at each of them in turn. From now on, you'll be called Gu-E, Gu-Er, Gu-San, Gu-Si, Gu-Wu, Gu-Lu, Gu-1 through Gu-6. Easy to remember, easy to explain to strangers, easy for everyday use. Before this, they had only ever gone by rough nicknames tossed around casually. Now they had a proper family name and real titles. For the first time in their lives, they truly belonged somewhere. All 6 bowed together, sincere and grateful. Thank you, sir, for giving us names. We won't forget this. My father laid out the rules for how things would work going forward, making sure everything fit the new era. When you're outside, tell anyone who asks that you're distant relatives from the Gu clan. Call me uncle and call my wife auntie. The new society doesn't allow the old customs of sworn fathers and adopted sons. That's considered feudal nonsense. But distant relatives traveling together and helping each other make a living? That's perfectly ordinary. Simple, normal, nothing that raises eyebrows. That's how we stay safe. The story about our family moving north for my health had already spread up and down the street. Everyone in the neighborhood knew. My father used that perfectly legitimate cover to quietly put all the pieces of our escape plan into place. After careful thought, he made a critical decision. My 3 brothers had to leave the city ahead of us, splitting up to reduce the risk. After dinner, He called all three of them into the study, shut the door, and spoke with quiet gravity. You three cannot stay in this city any longer. The Goof family has been here for generations. Everyone knows your faces, your backgrounds, your history. If you stay, you'll be watched constantly. The street committees and patrol squads will have you on their lists. You need to leave separately, head to different counties and towns in the surrounding area. Take different routes, don't travel together. Make yourselves as invisible as possible. My eldest brother stood straight and steady. Father, what should we be doing while we're out there? Focus on stockpiling the basics, everyday survival supplies. My father kept it simple and practical, cutting through any unnecessary complexity. Rice, flour, cooking oil, coarse grain, fine grain. Buy as much as you can. Then spread out your purchases of salt, white sugar, brown sugar, soy sauce, vinegar, plus dried spices like Sichuan peppercorns, star anise, cinnamon, dried chili peppers, anything that stores well. But here's the key. Never buy large amounts from the same shop or the same town. Keep it spread out, small quantities, many trips, different locations. That's how you avoid suspicion. Once you've got your supplies, each of you rent a quiet little courtyard somewhere out of the way. Lay low, stay put, and wait for my word. My third brother frowned slightly. Father, if we're buying supplies in bulk and someone questions us, what do we say? The explanation is easy, my father replied, calm as ever. Just tell the truth. Big family, planning to relocate up north for the long term, stocking up on daily necessities in advance. It's plain and reasonable. Nobody will dig deeper. Leave all the big decisions, the outside dealings, and the planning to me. The secret about my storage space, my father guarded it like his life depended on it. He would never tell a soul, not his aging parents, not even his own 3 sons. Not a word, not a hint. All the hidden collecting and storing of supplies stayed locked between 3 people only, my father, my mother, and me. Whenever we needed to secretly store large quantities of goods, my father would come up with some reasonable excuse, visiting old friends, wrapping up remaining business, running errands, and quietly take me along. We'd wait until deep in the night when the streets were empty, then move quickly and silently, leaving no trace behind. That entire night, every member of the household was in motion, each person assigned their role, everything running with smooth precision. Inventorying my grandparents' private storerooms, packing and sealing away valuable antiques, selling off eye-catching silk and collectibles in batches, dismissing the last round of extra servants, finalizing the 6 renamed young men who would travel with us, mapping out the route north, sending my 3 brothers out separately to begin stockpiling supplies in different directions. Every part of the plan clicked together seamlessly. Every last trace of the old life, the luxury goods, the feudal customs, the old-fashioned titles, the grand household ways, all of it was stripped away completely. What needed selling was sold for cash and ration tickets. What needed hiding was sealed away safely. Every risk and loose end was cut clean. All of it aimed at one goal. In this increasingly dangerous year of 1950, sever our ties to the past, shed every mark of wealth and privilege, and survive the decades of storm that were about to descend. Jiangnan in 1950 had become a completely different world. The new era was sweeping away everything old. The whole city was gripped by a culture of plainness and frugality. The grand lifestyles, the rigid etiquette, the silk clothing, all of it had become forbidden relics of a shameful past. You couldn't see fine fabrics, embroidered jackets, or jade bracelets on the streets anymore. Men, women, young, old, everyone wore the same thing: rough cotton shirts, plain jackets, dull gray and blue cloth. Simple cuts, muted colors. The elegant kipeos the wives once wore, the silk dresses for young ladies, the satin robes for gentlemen. Nobody dared put them on anymore. My father looked at what everyone in the family was still wearing and spoke firmly. Starting today, every person in this household changes their clothes. Silk, embroidery, brocade, all of it goes into storage chests. None of it leaves this house. The whole city is cracking down on old-style extravagance. Dress the wrong way, and you're painting a target on yourself. My mom nodded quietly, her fingers running over a plain cotton tunic. I understand. I already packed away the nice clothes. From now on, your mother, Wan, and I will all wear ordinary women's clothing. Simple fabric, nothing fancy. Plain hairstyles. All jewelry removed. My grandmother touched the jade earrings she'd worn for decades and sighed heavily. Perfectly good clothes, perfectly good jewelry. I've worn these things my whole life, and suddenly none of it is allowed. It just feels so wrong. Feeling wrong is a small problem, Mom. Staying alive is the big one, my father said, his voice dropping a shade darker. The street committees patrol every day now. Inspection teams go door to door, looking for feudal remnants and cracking down on old wealthy family habits. One old-fashioned dress, one piece of gold jewelry. That's all it takes for someone to file a report against us. It wasn't just the clothing that changed. The way we ate was completely transformed too. Before, every meal at our house had been fine white rice, balanced dishes of meat and vegetables, delicate pastries and tea. But now the entire city was pushing austerity and sacrifice, condemning any hint of excess. Ordinary families ate coarse grain buns and pickled vegetables every day. Cooking oil was scarce, salt was rationed, and sugar was a rare luxury. All grain, oil, fabric, and sugar were distributed through government-issued tickets in strict, limited quantities. The controls just kept getting tighter. My mom was tidying up the kitchen and spoke softly. We used to care about flavor and presentation. Now all that matters is filling our stomachs. And once we reach the Northeast, things will only get harder. I've heard it snows there for half the year, snow piled up past your knees. You know, I've never even seen snow in my entire life. My father nodded in agreement. The world is changing too fast. The next few decades are going to be unpredictable, and shortages will become the normal way of life. As long as we have supplies stored up, we won't panic. And speaking of snow, we need to stock up on even more warm clothing and insulation supplies. My mom agreed right away. That night, the family finalized every detail of our departure plan. But there was one person who still needed to be taken care of properly, our old steward, who had served the Gu family for most of his life. My father called him in privately, his tone gentle and honest. Old Gu, you've been with this family for decades. Loyal and hardworking every single day. I've never forgotten that. But this time, we're moving the whole family far out to the Northeast. It's a long journey, brutal cold, rough roads the whole way. The old steward's face fell. He asked quietly, "Sir, are you letting me go? I'm not dismissing you. I'm thinking of you," my father said slowly. "You're getting older. Your body can't handle a harsh, freezing journey like that. And your wife, your children, your grandchildren, they're all here in Jiangnan. This is your home. I'm not going to drag you north." My father paused, then continued. "I'm giving you a generous retirement payment, plus a large settlement fund, and plenty of grain and fabric tickets, enough for your whole family to live comfortably. If anyone asks, just say you retired because of your age and you're staying in the city to enjoy your later years." He leaned forward slightly. "But there's one more thing. Something I can only trust to you. We're heading north to escape what's coming. But someday, if things ever change, we'll want to come home. We'll need someone here. So I'm leaving the old estate in your care. Look after it, tie up any loose ends, and keep a line of communication open between us. If anything happens on either end, we'll have a way to reach each other." The old steward's eyes glistened. He bowed deeply. "Thank you, sir. I've been loyal to the Gu family my entire life. I'll guard this house, handle whatever needs handling, and never breathe a word to anyone. I won't bring trouble to the family." With the steward settled, my father felt some relief.
But there was no time to rest.
He immediately called my 3 brothers back in and went over the details of their supply runs. "You 3 leave tomorrow, separately. Don't travel together. Stagger your times, leaving the city gates. Each of you head to different counties and villages in the surrounding area." My eldest brother asked steadily, "Father, what exactly should we be buying in large quantities? Anything that's useful for daily life, stores well, and won't go bad. Especially anything for keeping warm. We've never been to the Northeast. All we've heard is that it's covered in deep snow and bitterly cold, so we need to prepare for the worst. While you're traveling, casually ask around about what life is like up north, so we have some idea what to expect." My father spread out a sheet of paper on the table and began listing things in a low, careful voice. Grain, coarse and fine, beans, cooking oil, salt, sugar, dried spices, pickled foods, dried vegetables, cured meats. Buy from different towns, small amounts at a time, never large orders from one place. We can't afford to attract attention. For clothing, think in layers. For each person, 20 sets of cotton undergarments, 20 pairs of wool socks, 20 pairs of thick cotton socks for warmth. Middle layer, 20 padded cotton jackets, 20 cotton trousers, 15 wool vests, light but warm. Outer layer, 10 long, heavy cotton overcoats and 5 sheepskin jackets for blocking wind and cold. Accessories, 5 thick ear-covering cotton hats, 10 dog fur winter hats, 20 pairs of cotton mittens, 20 pairs of leather gloves, 10 long wool scarves and thick cotton face masks, full coverage against wind and snow. Then stock up on insulated water bottles, simple clay dishes, canned tea, and high-energy dried nuts, things that serve both daily eating and cold weather survival. Don't hold back on quantities. Think in tons. For bedding, focus on warmth. 20 thick cotton quilts and mattress pads, 20 wool underlays, 15 sets of cotton sheets and covers. Get 10 heavy cotton door curtains and window covers, plus 20 insulated grass mats to block drafts inside a house. Also 10 charcoal braziers, 2,000 tons of charcoal, and basic heating tools. The Northeast is damp and freezing cold, and we'll need every bit of it. For footwear, each person gets 5 pairs of thick padded rubber-soled boots and 5 pairs of cloth-topped cotton shoes, plus leg wraps and sturdy hemp rope. Pack everything in heavy-duty canvas cases and leather bundles. He turned to my eldest brother. Pass the word along. Every person traveling with us is allowed 1 large canvas case only. Anything more becomes a burden. My brother nodded. My father grabbed his teacup and gulped down the lukewarm tea without caring about taste, then kept going. The journey is long. We'll need basic emergency gear for traveling through snow and rough weather. Once all the supplies are gathered, we'll take the train north. Jiangnan's climate is mild, so the goods here tend to be lightweight. That's why we have to buy thick, heavy-duty supplies ahead of time. After you've finished shopping, each of you rent a quiet, out-of-the-way courtyard to store everything. I'll come by at night to collect it all. Even after decades of running a business empire, my father was stepping into the unknown this time. I could tell he was uneasy underneath his composure. Everything ahead was uncertain, so all he could do was prepare as thoroughly as humanly possible. My third brother asked cautiously, "Father, if a shopkeeper or someone on the road asks questions about why we're buying so much, what do we say? Keep the story the same for everyone," my father said evenly. Big family, relocating up north permanently, stocking up on a full year's worth of household supplies in advance. Simple, reasonable, and nobody will think twice about it. All 3 brothers nodded together and accepted their orders solemnly.